Chapter 975. Deng Xiaojiang followed behind with mixed feelings. At that moment he really thought that Bun Song would die. In the end nothing happened. He was stunned. This was not the Jiang Yage he knew. Bun Song was still feeling smug. "Director Deng, you see it's not that hard to invite her, right? Jiang Yage is quite approachable and easy to talk to." Deng Xiaojiang really did not want to bother with this guy. He just laughed and said, "Yes, yes." Seeing that Big Beard Deng was ignoring him, Bun Song's mouth twitched. He had no interest in talking to him. He turned his head again to look at Qin Guang and Jiang Yage, who were walking down the stairs side by side. He thought to himself, "What a joke, what's there to look at, Big Beard Geezer? Didn't I invite you guys for a meal because of Jiang Yage? After waiting for so many years, I finally have the chance to get close to her. It's not a waste of my infatuation with you guys when my family was still poor. It's a pity that only one came. But forget it, it's better than nothing." Bun Song looked at Jiang Yage and Qin Guang being overly intimate and gritted his teeth. "Jiang Yage, why are you pretending to be a pure and innocent girl? Aren't you still 2 legs of meat after I peel off your skin?" He thought of the time before his family made a fortune. When he was still an ordinary junior high school student, he was obsessed with collecting CDs and posters from his left and right hands. He even bought DVDs for the movies that the two of them acted in. He spent a lot of money on them. Later on he finally became rich, but he never had the chance to get close to them. After all, everyone's social circles were different. Luckily he could catch celebrities in Baishui County and the surrounding cities from time to time. But it was never enough. But in the past 6 months, Jin Shiriyue and Qin Guang had a scandal. It was like a wake-up call to him. "I treat you guys like goddesses in my heart, but you actually let someone else take advantage of you without saying a word?" In any case there was still one left. However, when it was revealed that Jiang Yage was going to shoot a movie with Qin Guang, and there were going to be kissing scenes and intimate scenes with Qin Guang, he almost went crazy. Although he had personally touched many big and small artists in the entertainment industry, in his heart, the former idol of his youth, who was almost the same age as him, should be holy and pure. He had suspected that it might be the hype of the movie, and that it was not real. His patience had reached its peak this afternoon. When he saw Jiang Yage emphasize this matter at the media conference, he was completely in despair. Sure enough, all the crows in the world were black. The so-called pure and innocent celebrities were just a facade that was packaged externally, and their left and right hands were no exception. Since she had begun to accept a larger scale, it meant that she might be switching to the sexy wild beasts at night in the wilderness. All the scenes were shot at one take, coming to her from the side that not every director has the chance to achieve to arrange a dinner director Deng, shall we leave? It was precisely following the last minute ideas that Big Beard Deng she had strongly requested to do so. He received the dinner also very soon arrived at the hotel. She realized that she now, the young master of Tom State was thinking, if she were to put on makeup, she would even look like a Jiang Yage, but we have to shoot during the day. It's just that you are a little more expensive. Although her uncle, she doesn't matter, I don't have to come back. I don't mind using force. I'm not afraid of rejection was ineffective. He was afraid that no one could do anything to me. She had only acted as they got close would have to shoot all her scenes, which were basically wasted and changed dramatically. Of course, now his original plan, he listened to the great waterfall. Although Jin Shiriyue was not around, the benefits was already much faster than as a director who had shoot as much in one day. No one knew what she was hanging by the tail. She lose a pin. He did not know whether to shoot or not as her ambition on for this little face who would have to waste another day tomorrow. Let's make him feel good. Do you believe he was really happy and showing his face? Gently after then she threw back and begged for although Qin Guang had won back in this drama, the other party seemed to bet that I will still have to fight. Although there were no martial arts, if you want to make a big deal out of it, still not actually looking for trouble. He was afraid the film industry had developed to the present. What if after 2 days on another safety protection had taken place just in front? A-list stars still couldn't control his anger and ordered the local ruffians of White City in the middle will stand up and superstar coming to Baishui County to film. Even as there were helpful minor 3 kilometers away from Jiang Yage, although it is still a little expensive, she felt that Qin Guang's words would save a lot of life about this before. Qin Guang, after the later on the other main the middle-aged man and weaker people on the other side stand up and say the rest of the people can set up we have to drink 3 glasses of wine. Their biggest advantage was that she was trained in acting. You don't need to remove your make drinking girls. We will start shooting at dawn. They were still above average. After we finish your talent in sports, we will go to the village of Jiang Yage. I'm not afraid to even if it was just a long distance shot. The day after tomorrow, you are no different than a lot better than her previous. I don't believe it. In fact, you were so well protected way we can imitate the aura. You are simply otherworldly. However, her identity was a little off. The two of them chatted, but if it were not for Big Beard, sure enough, the fat guy in the middle stood up happily. Deep down, he also wanted. He said he wanted to set up tents to camp on the spot. On behalf of the people of the county, he welcomed Jiang Ye to take good care of. Thank you for coming. Big Beard, you also guaranteed that they were not qualified to and you can bring the style of our town to any people of the more dangerous and highest really a blessing the motivated by professionally trained. They estimated that it was obviously dangerous for simple jumps that required position range 60 to 70 by but for some reason when he introduced himself, but even though they were both stunt doubles, she lose status. He also did not clearly state his position. After all, probably everyone had to give her some mysterious power called, so it was definitely not her turn to stay in the bureau level. She took the initiative to worry about it for the sake of the others in the crew, as if he wanted to shake her hand. Overstepping the rules. Guang took a step forward and snatched the other party's hand. This is a scenic spot after all. Then he turned back and blinked at Jiang Ye. During peak season, there are many people coming and going. Did I say it correctly? It's impossible to let wild animals come close. Forced to smile at the official, so it's fine to leave a few people to keep watch. Then she turned her head and looked at the middle-aged man in the brown suit that Guang had mentioned earlier. Knowing that she was worrying too much, stood up with a glass of wine in his hand. I'm fine with it. He laughed. I can stay wherever I want as long as I don't remove my makeup. It's too hard to change my middle-aged makeup now. It's torture to make me sit there for 2 hours without moving. Song came to invite the two of you. Also said casually, thank you for your hard work. I'm fine with it too. But in our Baishui County, there are rules here. But these rules are applicable everywhere. She wanted to quickly finish late filming the outdoor scenes. You will have to drink 3 glasses of wine as a penalty. Second, the two of you are guests from afar, so it is not appropriate to punish the two so they could save a day of filming and save a lot of money. How about this? The two biggest stars also represent the Baishui County business community. Even if the others had objections, the two of you they had no choice but to do so. This is not considered a penalty, right? After a simple cleaning up of the scene, I will drink first as a sign of respect. Old Ma to go to the hotel that was built halfway up the mountain and grab all the remaining rooms. He did not wait for Guang and Jiang Ye to reply. Then he began to pick out people from the crowd. He raised his head and drank 3 glasses in a row. A-list and A-list celebrities. When he was done, he flipped the lid of the glass in front of the two of them, indicating that it was empty. Then the two big-name cameos who had come over recently were also called. Stunned. The rest felt that more delicate girls in the crew and the older ones. He guessed everything correctly. They were all arranged to stay in the hotel. Big Beard raised his eyebrows at her, feeling not go to a hotel with better conditions. This little trick was nothing at all. He had just used his world-class acting skills. He did not just rely on his glib tongue. The moment he saw this group of people, he had to set an example by doing most of their thoughts. Those who came did not come with good intentions, and those with good intentions did not your hearts. This group of people, including the fat official, after the others got into the car one after another as a cover. Guang jumped out of the car and did not put in a lot of effort for Jiang Ye. He was still a little worried. As the two of them exchanged glances, if anything happened, the waiter in the banquet hall had already sensibly brought a tray over. Although the conditions of the hotel halfway up the mountain were not as good, their safety was guaranteed. Drinking 3 glasses of wine as a penalty was easy to say, and it was in the depths of wine would cost 2 taels and 4 taels. If Shi Lu really jinxed it, regardless of how high Jiang Ye's alcohol tolerance was, when they heard that he was willing to stay, think twice before drinking 2 glasses of wine on an empty stomach. Seeing that the two of them did not move the table last night, although there were only a few main cast members present, please, after a whole day of spreading the news, everyone in the crew knew about it. Bao and Song, no one knew what a real martial arts master was like, also came but as long as Guang was there, you are already late. Wild beast came, my father has already toasted 3 glasses of wine. Everyone present felt that there were not many celebrities like Guang these days. Are you looking down on our Baishui County? Not only did he not put on any airs, he was also very considerate. Seeing that the situation was not compared to those little fresh meats who had been scolding people online recently. It was like heaven is indeed not feeling well today, so she can't drink. Then how about furthermore, she doesn't drink to begin tonight? Otherwise, as the director, I would drink on their behalf. I'll stay at the outermost area. He reached out for the glasses on the tray. I'll be the first to know. However, there was a loud slap for the fact that I have to act tomorrow. I'd be willing to keep watch. Director Deng, by the time everyone finished their lunch, the sky was almost completely dark. Isn't Jiang set up in the shape of a large fan along the foot of the mountain? From the middle of the tent, there was a bonfire made of dead. Now that my father is the host and the elder, was a different kind of atmosphere. He has already drunk 3 glasses of wine. Not long after, car lights came on in the distance. There is no reason for you to drink on his behalf. When it got closer, Jiang Ye jumped out of the car and waved from afar. Bao and Song had already turned hostile in public. The faces of Rin Chong, Zhao Yueling, Zhouya, Yang Shi, and the rest at the table changed. Jiang Ye waved to Qin Guang, to look at the fat official in the middle, and hoping that he would quickly step forward to smooth things over. This time, the rest of the crew was really shocked. The fat official's expression did not change. Instead, he put on a fake smile than anyone else. The people of Baishui County are simple and honest. And they are very particular about the rules. Jiang Ye stood still and said, "Everyone, when in Rome, do as the Romans do. Tonight too. All right, don't make trouble and go back quickly. Let's drink a few glasses and sit down to have a good talk." Jiang Ye looked at those who come from afar this way and said, "Of course, we are also our friends. The hotel room is the location where you chose the location for the movie is coincidentally the location where Tanya on real estate is planning to develop a villa project. I was afraid that her makeup would be ruined. There are many things that require the cooperation of Tanya, so I came back and let Shilu stay in my single room. We have to give him face. Otherwise, her protective uncle might say that we treated his baby niece with others in many years. Besides, isn't it safer to stay with Chen Guang? Which celebrity can't drink? Xiao Zhang's face stiffened. Miss Jiang, don't hold back. He thought she was right. Everyone is watching. Aren't you afraid of catching a cold? Drink. Jiang Ye giving him face. Everyone has the same tent. Is it because Boss Bao doesn't have enough face? Others aren't afraid of catching a cold. Then let's add me, who happens to be the director of the tourism bureau. It's not particularly cold. That should be enough. Am I that weak? Another fat middle-aged man stood up abruptly and downed 3 glasses in a row. In fact, Jiang Ye had heard the conversation beginning to end, but she did not say a word. And he suddenly realized that she did not know how to drink safer by his side. In the past, when she sang with her friends in Yanjing, she would occasionally drink red wine, but that was only to moisten the throat to make trouble again. As a professional singer, the voice was half of one's life. Although the probability of such alcohol was not high, especially this kind of spicy high-alcohol grandfather had not finished collecting the evidence. It was almost impossible for her to appear in such social occasions in her life. It was better to be safe than sorry. She had never seen such a scene, and she had never been forced to lose a single hair. Looking at the officials of Baishui County, they had so-called business celebrities. Seeing that Qin Guang had already expressed his stance, but in the eyes of Jiang Ye couldn't say more simply and could only helplessly that wanted to eat people. Where are you going to set up the tent? Don't you know that singers can't drink liquor? Who had been working tirelessly all day and had not had a chance to rest, came over. What the hell is in your head? It seemed that she was so angry that her body started to tremble. Pointed at Qin Guang. At this moment, Qin Guang patted her shoulder. As time went by, she couldn't help but indulge herself more and more. It's not that easy to be a good person, as long as he didn't sneak into the same tent as Qin Guang, people could gossip all they wanted. The director of the Guangdong General Administration was right beside her. Jiang Ye had a million ways to dig them out. What am I angry about? It wasn't the first time that Jiang Ye County was really that had worked together as a team with each other. Most of the team were smart people. And no one would be stupid enough to go against their entire lives for a small profit. Qin Guang shrugged. The night was long, and before the others saw the moon was high up and no one else was around, the camp, which was made up of interlocking tents, the Bao father and son felt even more disregarded, and they were furious. Even the original owner of the camp knew that Qin Guang had been chased far away and were chirping angrily. No matter how afraid he was, he still had to cause trouble. The bonfire in the middle of the Baishui County were really out of their league. Under the watchful eyes of a night watcher who added firewood to the fire. The other 4 night watchmen held flashlights and iron rods a wine glass from the waiter's constantly tray, patrolling around the camp. Instead, he looked around before his gaze landed on get-rich-bags' and 3 of them were retired soldiers. Boss Meow, they had their own job, but I don't know if I should say it or let them keep watch at night. Face is something that people have to support. It was already 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm not even close to you, so why should I give you face? Out of his tent and bumped into a stunt double who was passing by. Indecipherable expression on his face. Mr. Chen can't sleep? What? Qin Guang grinned. Get-rich-bags expression froze. I'll go sit by the bonfire. What did you say, you little brat? Actually, he didn't know what was wrong with him tonight. Beside get-rich-bags, he was fine before lying down, but after lying in bed, he couldn't help but feel uneasy. Little brat? It wouldn't be a big deal if it was just his uneasiness. I haven't heard anyone call me a little brat in a long time. And the earth burster being stared at by which hadn't shown any activity for a long time, had actually become more active than usual. He couldn't lift his slightly bent legs anymore. This was obviously an extremely abnormal phenomenon. Qin Guang didn't wait for that person to speak. He would definitely choose to enter the glass with his right thumb and middle finger and pointed at everyone on the table with his left hand and was still hiding. He enunciated unable to figure out what was going on. Today, all of you came and went because of your face. Qin Guang could only get up. Let me ask you, what face do you have? Breathing in the fresh mountain air from our long journey and wanted to rest in our rooms, sitting by the bonfire. We were called here to drink and laugh with the night watchman who was in charge of adding firewood. Now that we're here, we haven't even seen the would raise his head to look at the starry 3 glasses, vaguely feeling that the starry sky was flickering faster than usual. This is Baishui County, solidified but it's also swept across the surface of the Baishui County, refracting the light of the stars. There's never been a rule that says a singer has to drink at a table, and there's never been a rule that says a singer has to drink baijiu. In fact, today I won't ever since he returned from Mount Baylor after destroying the broken world in his hand, he would occasionally have this cup in his palm. After killing However, the skin on his hand was a martial sage. Instead, he let the white porcelain cup turn into powder. He knew that this might have something to do with the heavenly holy grail. At the same time, he used the back of his left hand to flip the tray that the waiter was holding. Baiha County, the 5 glasses fell to the ground and shattered, villa district, spilling wine all over the floor. In the afternoon, he entertained the bosses of the banquet hall was so silent that even a pin drop could be heard. After that, he went to the female secretaries had wanted to put the two popular stars in their place. When he returned home, it was already past 1 p.m. But no one had expected Chen Guang to react so fiercely. He had originally planned to not return home that night. If their previous behavior was not giving face, then this was basically a slap and take a look. From afar, he raised his head and saw that his three-story villa was built halfway up the mountain. A burly man standing behind Nong and Song saw that his boss was slapped in the face. When the car drove into the villa, he got out of the car and picked up a chair from behind in the master bedroom on the third floor had already been extinguished. Seeing his heart skip a beat as he felt that something was wrong. He shouted as he tried to block but did not go to the master bedroom. But he was one step too late. Instead, he went straight to Bao and Song's second bedroom. He twisted the door lock from the outside and realized that it was locked from the inside. He clenched his right fist that had just crushed the cup and casually swung as he shouted without turning his head, hitting the solid wooden chair. Come out. With a loud explosion, with splinters flew everywhere. The door to the master bedroom next door opened. The chair was smashed into pieces and flew in all directions. What are you shouting for? Although he wasn't hit by Chen Guang, and you're not letting me sleep, was only hit by the chair in his hand. Bao En Song is not in the mood to deal with you. He flew backward for 5 to 6 meters and crashed into the table on the other side. Fortunately, he was so angry that he stomped his feet. Otherwise, the force that was sent through the wood later would will all die because 1,000 times. Ignoring all of this happened too quickly. Turned around and just when everyone was dumbfounded, not knowing how Chen Guang sent the man flying, he moved 30 seconds later, his bodyguard captain, Ma Song, I'm giving you such a big face, boss. Chen Guang took a step forward, raised his hand and slapped down on the huge dining table that was covered with a red curtain and had a diameter of 4 meters. Master Mao is not in there. A loud bang rang out, and the gigantic dining table shook violently. Ma Song's face starting from the spot where his palm hit. Are you treating my words as collapsed to the ground as if it was a dead tree branch that had been smashed by his palm? He is not allowed to go out. The table full of dishes and wine fell to the ground, woman helplessly, leaving only a circle of people holding chopsticks dumbfoundedly looking at the empty space in front of them. Chen Guang turned around angrily to look at his control not only smashed the table, gave her another but slap. Also didn't let a piece of wood break out and hurt anyone. You're really going to kill However, me. The table was completely shattered. Stunned by the slap. The waiters at the side were even more scared out of their wits. They knew very well how sturdy the table was. Mao Fatsai kicked her again. I've given you enough face, don't act in a drama with me. Chen Guang didn't waste any more time. Do you know how scary Chen Guang is? He turned to Deng Xiaojiang and grinned. He's 10 times scarier than the woman who killed old Gung with one slap. If they haven't eaten enough, but you let your stupid son out. With his personality, he'll definitely go and cause trouble again. Energy. If we really don't want to waste time, he can crush us with just a finger. This was the first time Deng Xiaojiang saw Chen Guang's power. You're talking nonsense. His heart was pounding. Don't brag. He knew that this kid was not the same as killed old Gung because he wanted to take your brother's money. Don't make up nonsense. Saw him angry someone into a tree or something. His horizons. En Song is your biological tiger released from its cage was enough to take someone's life. So what if he wants to go out and drink with his special identity? Mao Fatsai did not expect that his wife would not believe him even though he had only told her about to make a martial arts film. She had always thought that he was the one who killed his brother, old Gung. He immediately called Ren Chong and the others to leave. He was so angry that his lips were trembling. He had long wanted to slip away. You're so stupid. Everyone please excuse me. Why did I marry an idiot like you and give birth to an even more idiot? I hope we can cooperate happily in this trip to Baishui County. If he really went out to drink, after Chen Guang finished speaking, he grinned again. He's going to poison all of us. And followed Big Beard and the others upstairs, senses and leaving behind a mess in the banquet hysterically. You finally said the bodyguard from Tong Yuan. That's what you've always been thinking, by his inner force. You've always still groaning on the ground, right? His companions were standing by the sand quarry, not knowing whether you are today or not. You ungrateful Chen Guang and Jiang Ye I'll fight it out with you. These men were so nervous that their hair stood on end. Was extremely They only heaved a sigh of relief when they were far away. Hard in the face again. This is simply overturning this, he shouted. After waiting for a long time for Chen Guang and Jiang Ye to contact to disappear from the staircase, you must pull him back quickly. Dan and Song supported his two of them went downstairs, but with a gloomy face he said fiercely, "What does he think our Baishui County is? Master Mao's phone. How can he behave so atrociously?" Off his phone. The fat officials are also suspected to be the local leader. Mao Fatsai was furious. Although he didn't suffer any losses making a loud to the end, his face was burning with pain. Call people immediately. After a night's worth of face, everyone from he was now completely disgraced. Call the people from the other gangs. But when he looked at the table on the ground, he felt a sting in his teeth. Let's go into the mountain now. I hope it's not too late. Celebrity named Chen Guang's Even if you want me to kneel and kowtow this was a solid wood table. I'll do it. How did he make the entire table collapse to the door as he instructed? Suddenly his phone rang. Human body, he picked it up and saw that it was into pieces like this table. As soon as the call was connected, was speechless for a long time. Whose anxious voice he turned to look at his son. Boss, stop it. What the hell are you doing? It's all your fault. Didn't you say you know what to do? Didn't you say you know what to do? Shook his clothes and led the way away. Now that things have gotten out of hand, there's no way to clean up this mess. Fatsai Mang turned back. Are you going to drag everyone from Baishui head down to hell? I know what I'm doing. Mao Fatsai's hand trembled as he held his phone. Mang, still a little unwilling. Old Hu, what's going on? If you like celebrities, go find your own celebrity from home. I've never
What's
cared
wrong?
about you in the
You
past,
really have a good
but this
son.
time,
We
we
can't
can't afford to kidnap
this
Jiang Yang. Let me tell you, the one who called me and the secretary to ensure the safety of the crew was the leader of the provincial party committee,
deep into the
and the
mountains
leader
to look
of
for
our
a suitable
Kainan
place to
province's
build a villa.
military. When they were
Jiang
deep
Yang
in the
and
mountains,
Qinguang
they
are
had
very
chanced
close.
upon a prostitute.
If anything happens
At
to
that
her,
time, his
it won't
brother
be
had
enough
said
for all
something
of us to
frivolous,
chop our heads
and in
off
the
10
end, he had been
times.
slapped into a tree
Mao
and
Fat's
died on the spot.
body went limp.
If not
and
for
he
the
almost
fact that
fell
he
to
and
the
the others
ground.
had knelt down
His
and begged
mind
for
was
mercy
filled
in
with
time,
thunderclaps
they
at the
would have
same
been
time.
slapped to death as
He
well.
knew his son's
That was a
character,
really
and he would
powerful
definitely
person,
not do anything
and it was also
good.
an experience
Not
that
only did he
Fatsai
offend
Meng didn't want to
Qinguang,
recall.
who he could not afford
Of
to
course,
offend,
that
but
woman
he
had
also
warned
pierced
him
the
before
heavens.
she left that he was
How did
forbidden from
Mother
mentioning his
Asterisk
encounter with
raising
her
a
to anyone
bastard?
else. If not,
It's
she
all
would
my
hunt
fault
him
for
down
this
for
stupid
thousands
woman
of
at
miles
home.
without mercy.
Don't F asterisk
But what
King talk
Qinguang
about
had
who's
done
to
was
blame.
even scarier
The
than that
entire
woman.
county's police force
Song,
has been
you must listen
mobilized,
carefully.
and there's only
We'll
one
forget
road
about
from
this
the scenic
matter.
waterfall.
Don't ever think
You just
about
have to
Jiang
pray
Yang
that your
again.
son will bring people
Why?
back and will be
Dan
able to
and
block
Song
them.
didn't understand.
If something really happens,
Don't ask
I'll
me
escape
why.
to Burma tonight.
I just won't allow it.
Do as you see fit.
Fatsai Meng
Anyway,
turned
I'll
around
say
and
this,
gave Dan
you'd better
and Song
be
a
mentally
kick,
prepared.
then quickened his pace.
If Jiang
He was
Yang
thinking
really
that
loses
after
a
they
single
finished
hair,
filming the
the
movie,
best
he
outcome
would
would
have
be
to
to
find
kill
an
your stupid
appropriate
son
reason
and
to
to
apologize
apologize
to
to
her.
her.
Although
All of us
everyone
might
in
still have a
Baishui
chance
County
of
respected
survival.
this boss Meng,
County head
he
who
had
hung
become
up
a
the
little
phone.
arrogant over the
Mao
years and felt
Fatsai
that he was
struggled
really
to get up from the
powerful.
ground and
But
shouted
now
at
that
the
he had
top
been
of his
awakened
lungs,
by Qinguang's
"Quick,
slap,
he knew that there
go
were
into the
real
mountains.
experts in this
Go
world
into
who
the
could kill
mountains.
without leaving a trace.
He was also afraid.
What had helped him turn
Chapter
Tongyuan real estate
981.
from a small
Endless
construction team
sirens
into the
rang through
biggest
the
real
entire
estate
two-lane
company in
road
Baishui
leading from
County,
Baishui County
other
to
than
the
his
depths of the
ruthlessness,
scenic area,
was also the seven-word
densely
mantra
packed
of
police
"A
cars were
wise
like
man
ants
submits
moving
to
houses,
circumstances,"
drawing long
Dan
shadows
and
on the
Song
road.
looked at his
In the
father's
police
hurried back
station
view,
inside the
and there was
entrance
some
of the scenic
disapproval
area,
in his eyes.
old Shin's face
But in
was
the end,
even
he
paler.
didn't dare to
He was
contradict his
desperately
father,
urging his
and only
colleagues in
gritted
the
his
station.
teeth secretly.
Hurry up.
On the other
All
side,
of you, hurry up.
Qinguang and Jiang Yang
He
went
pointed at the
upstairs to their
intersection
room.
outside.
Along the way,
The police
Jiang
cars
Yang
from the
kept
county
grabbing
branch are
Qinguang's
already in
hand
front
and
of
looking
us.
at it. If we
Is
don't
your hand
hurry
okay?
up, we'll be
That
punished.
piece of wood looks
We'll
so
all be in
hard.
trouble. Jiang
Among
Yang
the
said
8 or 9
worriedly,
colleagues,
but her
many
eyes
of
were
them
looking
still
at his
looked
hand with
extremely
interest.
sleepy.
That's
It was
strange
obvious
that
that
you
they had
crushed the
just
wine
rushed
glass in
over
your
from
hand
their
just now.
respective homes.
Why are you perfectly
Most of the
fine?
staff in the scenic area
Qinguang
police
snatched his
station
hand
lived in
back.
the city.
You were
The
hoping
branch
that
and a
something
few
would
police
happen to
stations
me?
in the border city
Of
had
course
already
not.
started moving.
I was just worried.
So these people
Oh,
either
is that
stared at
so?
their cars or
Then you
rode
were worried
electric
for
cats
nothing.
to the scenic
That
area
day when I
police
was with
station.
you at the Silver
This
Bull
was just a
Hotel,
small
I
scenic
actually
area
deflected
police
a
station,
bullet with my fist.
and only a few of the
This
regular
broken
staff
piece of
could
wood is
afford their
nothing.
own cars.
Jiang Yang
Moreover,
stuck
when
out
they
her
heard
tongue
that they were going to
mischievously.
be dispatched,
That's
even if they
amazing.
had cars,
Of
they were
course.
smart enough to
You're
choose
amazing
another
in
route.
that aspect too.
No one was willing
Shut
to
up.
drive their own car
Seeing
to the
that they were
police
about to
station.
return to their
Chief
floor,
Shin, we're all
Jiang
here, but
Yang
there's
pulled
only one
Qinguang
van
back.
and one Jetta.
It seems
What?
like we can't finish
Don't
all
go
of
and
them.
kill people at night.
The deputy chief
You're not the
spoke as he
director
took
of
out
the
a bottle
Guangdong
of
General
mineral water from the
Headquarters
tail of the
anymore.
van and poured it down
Qinguang
his head.
smiled and nodded.
He had no choice
Don't
as
worry,
he
I
had to drive
understand.
later, so he
I don't
needed
have
to
the
be
identity
refreshed.
of a law
Old
enforcement
Shin
officer
first
now.
looked at the others
If I
and
rely on my
calculated in his
skills and
mind for
kill
about
people
10
I don't
seconds.
like, what's the
Then he
difference
gritted his
between
teeth
me and
and
those
said,
internal
all
force
those
martial
above
artists
30
that I
get in
hated
the
the
van.
most in the past?
Young lads
It'll
under
also
the age
make
of
things
30,
difficult
you
for
can
your
go find your
grandfather
own
and your
bicycles,
colleagues in the Guangdong
electric
General
kittens,
Headquarters,
or borrow
right?
motorcycles from nearby.
Jiang Yang nodded.
Even if you can't get
Yes,
anything,
actually,
you have to
this
walk
is what
over
my
here.
grandfather asked
Let's
me
go.
to tell you before I came
This
to
scene was
Kainan
happening
Province
in
this
many
time.
police stations
I forgot
further
to say
away
it
in
before.
Baishui County.
But don't worry,
Even
I
in
won't
an
let
Air
this
Force
matter go
training
just like
base
that.
about 100
I'll call
kilometers
my
away from
family
here,
later.
3
As long as
military
there's even the
helicopters that were in
slightest bit of
combat mode
unclean
also took
behavior
off
in that
without
lousy
warning.
county magistrate
As for the
and fortune
Baishui
monger,
County Armed
I'll
Police
investigate
Squadron,
them thoroughly.
they had gathered and
They
set
won't
off
have
even
many good
before the
days ahead
police
of them.
system had reacted.
Qinguang nodded.
Now they were at the very
It's
front.
impossible for them to
It was
be
the
clean
duty
like
of the
that.
soldiers to
It's
obey
better to
orders,
investigate
and so
them
were the
thoroughly.
police officers.
But it'll take
They
a few
didn't need
days.
to care about why
we
they
need
had to be
evidence to
dispatched.
arrest them.
They only needed
I
to get
understand.
ready and set off after the order was
But
given.
tonight, the
and then
leaders of
appear at the
Kainan
place where
province
they were
should
needed
greet the
within the
people of
stipulated
Baishui
time.
County, and
Even
they'll
though
settle
Old
down.
Shin didn't know the reason
That's
why
good.
they had to be
I
dispatched
reckon that
so
by the time we
urgently,
finish
he
filming here and
subconsciously
get ready
felt
to
that it
move
might
to
have
another
something
place,
to do with
the
Bao and
investigation team will
But
have
now
almost
he could
finished
not ask
collecting
about
evidence.
it. Many
By that
people
time,
knew that
we
he
can
was
leave
close
2
to
days
Dan
later
and
to
Song,
watch the show.
but in the face of
If we
such a
leave
major
2 days
issue,
earlier,
he
we'll
had
have
to make
nothing
his
to do
stand
with it.
clear. Qin Guang smiled indifferently. All of a sudden, the
I hope
entire
so.
Baishui County shook violently. This was no longer as simple
Chapter
as
977.
This was a
Everyone
magnitude
went back
8
to their
earthquake.
rooms.
The head of the
Quartermaster
Kainan
Guang waited
province's
for more than
military,
half an
who was
hour,
directly
but
in charge of
Zhang
this
Ye's
matter,
exercise
and the head of the
video still
Kainan
didn't
province's
come.
police system,
She should be busy
who was
making phone
coordinating
calls
with
to
him,
complain about
shivered
what happened today.
uncontrollably at the
After
thought
waiting
of this
for a long
terrifying
time, his
situation.
phone finally beeped.
Just now, they
He
were
picked
worried
it up
that
and took a
Baishui
look.
County didn't
A
know the
video call
seriousness of the
request.
matter and would
Coming,
reveal
coming.
Zhang Ye's true identity.
His clothes were gone.
That was why
If a
county
man wants to
magistrate
do
who
his
said
job
those
well,
words
he
when he
must
was
first
talking
take off his
fortune
clothes.
bag. Under normal
His pants flew
circumstances,
too.
even if a
If a
senior
man wants
Chinese
to
official
sharpen
had
his spear,
corruption
he
or
must
made
first
some
take
mistakes
off his
in principle,
He wouldn't be
circles
sentenced
to
to
the
death
left
as
and
long
3
as the
circles to
impact
the
wasn't
right.
too severe.
Everyone, let's
However,
train
if
together.
something were to happen to
At this
Jiang
time,
Yage
some
and
people were
Baishui,
about
the
to
Bao
say,
father and son,
why do you have to
as well
rely
as
on
the
yourself
entire
when you're
Baishui
just next
County's
door?
officialdom,
Are you
which had been
stupid?
entangled with the
The
Bao
person
father
who
and
said
son
such
for so many
sarcastic
years
words must
would
be
definitely
single.
be destroyed.
Why did so many
Even
people
the
still
heads of
want to
10
watch
people
videos
might
or
not
watch
be
the
enough.
live stream of
At this
sexy and hot
time,
girls
Bao
when they
and
were
Song,
clearly
who had
married and
caused
had
a
wives?
huge disaster,
It could not be
still
explained
didn't know
in
what
theory,
kind of
but such a
hornet's nest he had
phenomenon
poked.
existed objectively.
In order not to be
Master
affected by
Guang
his
could tell
meddlesome
everyone
father,
righteously
he
that
even
this
turned
was
off his
different.
mobile phone
The
and
feeling
used
was
the phone
really
of the lackey
completely
he had
different.
pulled over to
Watching
contact the
short
lackey at
videos
the
or
intersection.
large-scale videos,
At this
or
time,
watching
he was sitting in the
one-on-one
middle
live
of a
streams like
7-seater
Jiang Yage
Toyota
were
Prado
actually
for
for
the
the sake
sake
of
full of
feelings.
excitement and
Mortals
pride.
like you don't
There was
understand
also
the
a
noble
Hyundai
faith
Tucson
of
behind the
admiring
Prado,
beautiful
and
bodies
he
on
had
the
pulled a
screen.
total of 9
Only
people in the
faith
2
and feelings
cars,
could not
most
be
of whom were
erased.
his best
Then
buddies.
Qin Guang
There were
happily
8
pressed
people
the
in the 2
accept
cars
button
who
and
had
was ready to get to
participated in the
work.
killing of the female student.
Xiao Qin, what are
Among
you
this
doing?
group of people, there
You're
was
half
only
naked
one
and
young
ready
man
to
who was
sleep?
newly called.
Old
It
John
was said that he was the son of a
video.
hunter in the mountains
His
and
face
was
was
especially
oily and
familiar with the
cheerful,
mountainous
like
areas.
the bright lamp in the
Bao
black
and Song
liquid,
was also
the
thinking of
Mithriya
finding
Buddha.
an accomplice
Qin
that
Guang
his
was
father
so
wouldn't
scared that his
expect
hand
to use his
trembled,
mobile phone.
and his phone almost
As
fell
for
off
his
the
other
bed.
buddies, they had
The
all
pile
turned off
driver
their
that had
mobile
just felt
phones
a
under
little
his
bit fell
request.
down with a whoosh.
Woo 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 woo.
Fortunately, he had
Sobs
turned
could
on
be
the front
heard coming
camera
from the
facing
last row of
himself
the
and
Prado,
not down
and
below.
the back of Bao and
Otherwise,
Song's chair
old
was being
Zhang's eyes
kicked.
might have been
He
injured
was a
from the
little
shock.
impatient and
I'm
straightened
really
his
seeing
body
a
to
ghost.
push the girl's
When the
leg
call
down.
request popped
What
up
are you
just
screaming
now,
for?
Qin Guang
Are
saw
you
the
afraid
word
now?
Jiang at
Weren't
first
you very
glance.
capable before?
He did not think too
Didn't
much
you think
about
that
it
you
and
were a
only
big
thought
shot?
that the benefits
Did
were
you
in
think
place.
that I wouldn't dare
Who
to
would have
touch you?
thought that this
Why
Jiang
don't you
was not
find
the
out
other
what kind
Jiang?
of person I,
You're a man,
Bao
an
and
old
Song
man
am?
in his 70s
Do you
or 80s?
think you're the first
Why are you
celebrity
video
to fall
chatting
into
with
my
me in the
hands?
middle of the night?
To tell you the truth,
What was wrong with
Bao
him?
and Song
Fortunately,
have never
the old
failed
man
to
was
sleep with a
talented.
woman I want to sleep
Otherwise,
with.
if it was someone
Bao
else
and
who was
Song
excited
couldn't
to
help
see a
but feel
girl, but
proud.
it turned out to be a
As he
big
said
baldy
these
like
words,
him,
his mind
he
would
was
be
thinking
so
of all
scared
the
that he
tapes,
wilted.
CDs,
Okay?
and VCDs
After
he
a
had
while,
collected
Qin
over the
Guang
years.
pulled the quilt over
Jiang
himself
Yage
and
looked
looked
so
at
youthful
old
and
grumpily,
invincible
saying,
in the movies
Grandpa
and MV.
Jiang,
You should have called me in the middle of the night. It wouldn't
Why
be
did you
long
call me?
before he would trample
Old
on her
Jiang
pride
chuckled.
and make her cry
Didn't
under
my
his
good
body.
granddaughter call me to
Actually,
complain
with his
just
previous
now?
habits, he
She
might not
blamed
even
us
need
for
to
not
take her
sending
away.
guards to her
He
this
could just
time.
do it in the hotel room. In the
After
past,
that,
she always
no
said
one
that
would
she
be
was
able to
annoying.
let out a fart.
Now that she's
But in
in
the
trouble,
end, he
she
changed
blames
his
me
mind
for
and
not
chose to
making
tie her
arrangements.
mouth, then
Tell
use a
me,
sack
as a
to tie her
grandfather,
up,
why is
carry
my
her
life
down,
so
and
bitter and
stuff her into
difficult?
the car.
Qin
The
Guang
reason was
laughed it
very
off.
simple.
It's indeed
Others didn't
difficult.
dare to stop him,
It's hard
but
to
Qin
please.
Guang did.
In the video,
Although he
old
had a
Jiang
gun,
seemed to
Bao and
empathize
Song
with
was
him.
also afraid
So,
that if Qin
am I
Guang
not
came in and
embarrassed?
killed him, he would
Didn't
be
I
caught
think
off
that
guard.
you wouldn't be around
That
this
slap
time?
was very
You
vicious,
might as well
and
not
no one
send
would be
anyone.
able to take it.
Even if there's a hole
Besides,
as big
this
as the
time,
sky,
he didn't
you can
want to
still
be the
take
only
it,
one
right?
who was comfortable.
Qin Guang nodded.
Because of Qin Guang
Yes,
and
if
Jiang
she can
Yage,
lose even a
he and
hair,
his
I
father
will
had
cut off
lost
my
face.
toes and make soup
You
for
wanted
you,
to
Grandpa
completely
Jiang?
destroy Jiang Yage both
*CK
physically
off.
and mentally.
I don't want to
So,
stew your
he
toes.
had to find another place where
So,
no one would
Grandpa
disturb him.
Jiang, what are you
He
trying
and
to
his
say by
brothers who were
playing
with
with
him
video?
today would serve her
You really
well.
don't have to worry
Otherwise,
about
he
Jiang
wouldn't be
Yage's
able to
safety.
feel at ease.
She is safe. She was lucky
Here's
to be
the
able to
thing.
survive.
Anyway,
and he
we
could
all
just
know
let her
what
go
happened
after
today.
that. You did a
Bao
good
and
job
Song
and
wasn't
restrained
afraid that
yourself.
she would sue him.
You deserve
What a
praise.
joke. Did
These
celebrities
people
still
in
want to
Baishui
earn
County
money?
are too lawless.
If she was an ordinary
Don't
woman,
worry.
she might really
I
go
will
all
give you
out
an
and sue him.
explanation later. But this was Jiang Yage,
Don't
who was
give me an
famous for her
explanation.
youthful image.
Give your granddaughter an
Besides,
explanation.
Bao and Song wasn't
I didn't
afraid
suffer
that she
any
would sue him at
grievances.
all. Old
No
Jiang
one could do
nodded
anything
again and
about what
again.
happened in
That's
Baishui
right.
He's territory.
Anyway, I have sent
If she
someone
was
to beat up
unlucky,
the
she would
rats in
die.
Baishui County.
Bao and Song
Don't
didn't
do
think
it
it was a
yourself
big
without
deal.
evidence. He would dig a hole
Qin
in the
Guang
mountain and
shrugged.
bury her.
If these
This
people
wasn't
don't
the
come
first
to
time.
make trouble, I
He
won't
even made the
provoke them,
people
okay?
who went upstairs
But I
wear
don't think
headgear,
it's so
which was
easy.
rare.
there. Maybe
This
some
time
people
he
are
was
thinking
much more
of secretly
careful than
making a
before.
few people
The
disappear
girl
in
who
this
was trapped in the
uninhabited
back
white mountain
seemed to
black
become
water.
even more
No one
irritable
will be able
after
to
hearing
find out.
Bao and Sang's words.
How dare they?
She bent her
Old
leg and
Jiang
wanted to
glared at
kick
him.
his backrest,
Chin
still
Guang
whimpering.
chuckled. Don't waste your
dare?
energy.
The
Think
two
about
looked
how
at
you're
each
going
other
to
for a
serve
few
me and my
seconds through
brothers
the phone,
later.
and
If
old
you
Jiang
perform
shook
well,
his head
you might
with a
still
wry
be able to
smile.
live. I really can't
At this
guarantee
moment,
it.
the old-fashioned
Rome
phone
wasn't
in
built
Bao
in a
and
day.
Sang's hand rang.
A place like
It was a
Baishui
call
County
from the
wasn't the
informant
only
hiding
one
in
in
the
the bushes at the
Wuxia
intersection.
Empire.
Perhaps the people
Young
there had
Master
been running
Bao.
amok every
Bad
day,
news.
and they had
Bad
really
news.
developed a sky-high
Bao and
courage.
Sang scolded
Old Jiang
impatiently.
seemed to be a
Stop
little hesitant.
talking nonsense.
What if they
What
really
exactly
make
is
trouble
it?
again? Hurry
Qin
up and
Guang
say
was
it.
still smiling.
Did old Shin bring
First,
his men
I
out?
will protect Jiang Yage from any harm.
The person
Second,
on
I
the
will kill
phone
them
seemed
all.
to be too nervous
Even though
and
they were
stuttered.
separated by
Then
two
why are
mobile
you so
phone
surprised?
cameras and thousands of
Bao and
kilometers,
Sang was about
old
to hang
Jiang
up.
still felt the
So
murderous intent
many
from
police
Qin Guang.
cars.
His
So many
extremely
police cars
powerful
are following
personal
behind
strength had
8 trucks
indeed
from
made
the
this
county.
kid a little different
I
from
feel
the
that
past.
all the police
In the
officers in the
past,
county
he liked
are
to
on the
make
move.
jokes and would only
It's
show
so
his
densely
edge when he
packed
was
that I
forced
can't
into
even
a
count how
desperate
many of them are
situation.
there.
Although he
Bao
could
and
still
Sang was
control
so
himself
shocked that
now,
he almost
he had
dropped the
become
phone
much
in his
more
hand.
angular in the end.
Rick. His
Hurry
eyes
up
were
and
a bit
break.
scary.
After a short moment of
Okay,
confusion,
that's all for now.
he hurriedly
Little
shouted,
Shin, have a good rest.
After hanging up the video
At
call,
this moment,
old
the
Jean
off-road
poked his
vehicle
head
was
out
driving
from the
back.
side.
Old
From what
Jiang,
the informant
aren't
said,
you afraid
based
of
on the
being
laughed
commotion?
at by video
it seemed that
chatting
the
with the
entire
young man
nest had been mobilized,
Old Jiang argued,
and the road would
what do you
definitely
know?
be blocked. If he were to drive back in this direction, granddaughter is in his room into a trap? Old Jean asked with a smirk. Young Master Bao, go away. The informant just watch your own baby granddaughter. What's the matter now? Why are you interfering with me? I've been discovered. Old Jiang waved his hand impatiently. The informant hiding in the bushes had a strong flashlight. In fact, he was glad that the layout of the room behind Qingguang was different from the one in Song Pavilion. A cold and dark muzzle was pointing at his head from the side. Jiang Yage sent him a message. Cursed. After you want to exercise? After that, he hung up decisively. His mind was extremely confused. Sleep early. Didn't he just get up early tomorrow to film? Was this necessary? Exercise my ass. What exactly was going on? He was so scared that he didn't want to exercise at all. It was one thing for the police to be mobilized in the next room, but why did the armed police also take action and unwillingly pinched the corner of her carefully prepared pink chiffon nightdress? He took out his phone, which had been switched off, muttering, was a little hesitant. What's wrong with you? He wanted to turn on the phone and call his dad. After a long time, the more she thought about it, the angrier she got. House arrest. She kicked the electric thing off the bed. A little indignant. Grandpa must have taken up too much of my time. At the young man beside Otherwise, Grandpa must have called him country bumpkin but had a fierce face. What a busybody. Are you familiar with this mountain? There's still a few days before Sister Shui comes. Brother Bao, there's no hurry. It's not that I'm bragging, but in this area, even with my eyes closed, she adjusted her mood. I can go into the mountains to hunt for deer to go bed, rolled up the blanket, and fell into a deep sleep in less than 2 minutes. In the next room, Qingguang didn't feel sleepy at all. All of you get out of the car. Others might feel sleepy because of the long journey, but not him. Qingguang leaned against the window, and another strong young man to carry the woman trapped in the black sack, which was much clearer than the 5 capitals. Young Master Bao, this car, the stars that hadn't been seen for a long time were twinkling in the sky. From your garage. He muttered to himself, you can tell your dad that it was a beautiful place. Who cares if he believes it or not? With his current strength, get away with it, or perhaps with his identity, killing a few or even dozens of people with criminal records with dirty hands and feet was actually not a big deal that he could not bear. No matter how many people there were, as long as they couldn't catch them in the act, he had seen just make a detour and go back. Skin mask. How big of a deal is it? And he had also seen the shadow alliances. It must be that Wuxia, who was pretending to agree but secretly opposing, whether it was his strength or status. He had actually far surpassed Yang Tianjing in the Shadow Alliance that he had worked hard to build. But almost at the same time, at the campsite, Qingguang was trying his best to restrain his impulse to lie down for less than half an hour. In the long 130,000 years of the Jinwu continent's life, it was Big Beard Deng's voice. He had also temporarily from a distance and getting closer, as if he was shouting and running at the same time. Actually, when he suddenly woke up, he turned around and saw a mountain of corpses and Qingguang had already woken up. He had to restrain himself to maintain his humanity. It took some effort to unzip no matter how strong a person was, if he lost his humanity, then he would no longer be a person and walked out. Moreover, the people in the real world weren't like the people in the Jinwu realm. If they died, then they died. As Qingguang asked, they would still be a good man to look around the campsite. In this real world, he didn't know whether people had an afterlife. He really couldn't think of anything else that could make Big Beard so flustered. Qingguang was a good person. At this moment, Jiang Yage also poked her head out from her tent, but he had a righteous heart. Eyes, she asked, now that he had become stronger, the more powerful he was. At the same time, the more responsibility he had to bear. Poke their heads out from their tents to look around. Punishing evil and promoting good, looked flustered. He couldn't do it just because he disheveled. His hair he didn't have the leisure and he was still to investigate the background of the Bao family's father and son. He first looked at Qingguang, but now that someone was investigating, his mind was still thinking about the deafening news from the phone call. Qingguang didn't want to become like Ouyang Tianjin. About Jiang Yage's identity. His butcher knife was sharper, but he wouldn't easily unsheath it. Jiang Yage. Once it was unsheathed, there would be no hidden dangers and he would kill everyone. So, he had to be justified so that similar voices of surprise rose and fell one after another. He could see through people's hearts to a certain extent, was the loudest, but he couldn't see through other people's faces. From the past until now, the Bao family's father and son didn't look like good 982. People. But now he couldn't be sure whether they deserved to be executed or not. Stretched her hand out from the zipper he would give them a chance, pointed at her and also give himself a chance. Completely dumbfounded. If he really found out that there was a problem, it wouldn't be a big deal if he didn't find it troublesome to do it himself. That's right. In the police station about 3 to 4 miles away from the Scenic Hotel, head who called to inform me that you were kidnapped by a few masked men at the Scenic Hotel, watching TV and eating melon seeds. After a brief moment of confusion, the office door opened, and a middle-aged man with a square face walked in, looking who had been kidnapped. He took off his coat and threw it on the chair, and she didn't remove her makeup. The late autumn weather must have mistaken me so damn cold. Big I don't know what's wrong with the county leader's brain. His old friend Shi Chang's exhortations were still ringing in his ears. There's no warning at all. Then why did you come back after just half an hour? He never expected that nothing would happen to Shi on the office chair with a square face. Instead, she would be mistaken for Jiang Yage in his mouth, and he didn't look proper at all. Even if those people masked their faces, since it was obvious that the only person invited me, how dare I delay such a thing was Bao and Song. Why are you looking for me in the middle of the night? This bastard's guts were so fat that they were about to patrol after serving you. Qingguang instantly understood the situation about it, and his face darkened. That a big shot has come to our county, that the other party kidnapped the wrong person. I don't dare to be caught red-handed. Perfection when Bao and Song sat on the seat with the square face, but he didn't recreate Jiang Yage's appearance. Instead, he sat on the sofa and chatted happily with Bao and Song. The other party must have rushed into the room to kidnap Shi Lu. The lighting wasn't good,
Chapter
so it wasn't
978.
strange for them to
The
kidnap
moment
the wrong
this
person.
big shot is
Perhaps
mentioned,
someone in the
Wong
hotel
and
had
stomach
leaked the
is
information
raging,
to
and he
balance
spits out the seeds
and he
in his
knew that it
mouth.
was Jiang Ye's room. It was
K,
just that
those big
Jiang Ye
shots.
ran out on
Aren't
her
they
own,
just a few
and no one
celebrities?
noticed that the person
That
in the
mayor
room
was
had
too
changed.
much.
He
Although
pretended to be
Chen Guang and
polite
Shi
in
Lu
front
had
of my
some
father,
conflicts during the
and now he
filming of
wants you all to
Thunderstorm.
crack down on
She
them.
apologized
Isn't
again
this
and
a
again,
slap to my
and
father's
Chen Guang
in my
knew
face?
that she didn't have any
F
bad
asterisk
intentions, so
asterisk
he didn't
K his
care about it
ancestors.
anymore.
Do you still
Later
want
on,
to stay
seeing
in
that she was
Baishui
quite
River?
motivated,
The
Guang
square-faced
actually quite
inspector
admired
saw
her.
Wong and Song
Recently,
looking like a
he had
cat
been
whose
giving
tail
her
had
some
been stepped
pointers on her acting
and he
skills
seems to
from
know
time
more
to
than
time.
him.
He is
Chen Guang
confused.
knew that this little girl
Young
might have
master
some
Bao,
feelings
what's
for
going
him,
on?
but he
Can you
didn't
tell
want to
me?
cause any more
When I
trouble,
asked,
so he
Deputy Chief
deliberately
Song
kept his
asked me not to
distance.
talk too much,
Gradually,
and he was
her
acting
youthful
mysterious
feelings
and
faded
nervous,
away,
and
he
she
asked me to
simply
just do
worshipped
my
him.
job and not ask
Now
anything
that she had
else.
become a scapegoat
I don't
for
really
Jiang
understand.
Ye, Chen
Wong
Guang
and
felt
Song's
that he
eyes
could
are
not
wide
ignore it.
open.
Do
What
you know
does
where the
Song Yang
kidnappers
mean?
went? Is he
I'll
trying
go
to
save
go
them.
against me and my father?
As Chen Guang spoke, he
Turned
turned
back
young
into the
Master
tent,
Bao,
took
out
out
his
his
coat
coat, and quickly put it on.
I did not watch
Big
the news
Beard seemed
today.
to be a little
I
hesitant.
went out to arrest
He
people
didn't
in the
want
morning,
Chen Guang
and I
to
don't
take
know
the
what's
risk,
going
but
on
when
in
he
the
thought of
county.
his skills, he
Wong
felt
and
at
Song
ease.
slaps the table.
Although he was
F
barehanded,
asterisk
the
asterisk
power of
K.
his slap was
Who else can it
equivalent to
be?
holding a
Chen
grenade in
Guang.
his hand.
Jiang Ye,
In addition,
Deng
he
Xiaojing,
seemed to
and
have
the
held a
rest.
special
Big
position in the
shots?
past.
Pui.
They're just a bunch of actors, and
Maybe
they're the
he was
best
even
at
more
acting.
powerful than the
Song
Soldier King
Liangji
in the
was
novel
at the
that a
table when
certain
we were
producer
eating.
had recommended
How can
to
he
him.
not know who they
Big
are?
Beard was also
What's there
very
to be
anxious.
nervous about?
After all,
Can a slap
that was
be
his
harder
niece
than
that
a
his
bullet?
old friend had asked him to take
Young
good
Master
care
Bao,
of.
do you have
If
a
something
grudge with
really
them?
happened, he couldn't
It's not
explain
just a
it to
grudge.
Shichanghe.
This is a huge
Now that Chen
grudge.
Guang set off
I'm
from
furious,
here,
and
he
my
might
father
arrive
is also
faster than the
furious.
police.
Do you know
So
that when
he
my
really
father
had to count on
Chen
him.
Guang, he
After
refused to
county head
drink
who
and
said
even
that the
flipped
kidnappers
table.
were kidnapped,
He
he
embarrassed
drove
me and my
two
father in
SUVs
front
in
of
the
everyone.
direction of the county
F
town.
asterisk
This road
K,
in the scenic
that
area
fellow
is
was
a
still
dead
trying
end
to
road,
put in a good
and
word
there's
for my
only one
father,
direction in
and
the
I
county
thought he was
town.
trying to help us.
Now all the
Now
people
he's
in the
trying to
county
suck
town
up
have
to
been
these
mobilized,
and the
you must
armed
be
police
kidding
have
me.
also been
The
mobilized.
square-faced
If
deputy
we're lucky,
chief
we
feels
might
that
be able
things
to
are
catch
not
them
that
on their way
simple.
back.
Young
But
Master
it seems
Bao,
that
maybe they
sent
really have
spies
some
at the
background.
intersection.
We can't rule out the
possibility that
background?
the kidnappers
What
abandoned
kind
the
of
cars and
background
went
could
into
they
the
possibly
mountains.
have?
If they
All
really
the
had a
police and
powerful
armed police
background,
have been
wouldn't they have
mobilized?
said so when I asked
Chen
them to
Guang
come
asked.
down and eat with
Big
me?
Beard nodded.
Let me tell you that Chen
That's
Guang
right.
is a gutsy
After all,
hothead who
they
thinks
thought
his
that the
person
person
who
who
was
was
kidnapped
kidnapped
was
he acts
Jiang
like he's
Ye.
the best.
As old
Then
Deng
why are you
spoke,
looking
he
for
turned
me
his
now
head
to
to
look
young
at
Master
Jiang Ye?
Now. He didn't
Square-faced
know
had
if
a
he should
bad
feel
feeling
lucky or
about
have a
this.
headache. That's right,
Even
old
if it was
Chen,
Shi
we're old
Lu,
friends. It wouldn't be a
you
good
also
thing.
know that I can't bear
All
to
right.
be wronged.
I'll go save
Not
them.
to mention that my
As
father
Chen
has
Guang
lost
spoke,
face along
he
with
turned
me.
and was about
We
to
have to
leave.
give them an
Jiang
explanation.
Ye suddenly
They
rushed
can't
out of the
pretend that
tent.
nothing happened
She
and
was also
finished
very
filming
agile
Angela
and
had
had
actually
dressed
comfortably.
up. Otherwise,
Wait
how
a
can
minute,
I and
I'll
my
go
dad
with
face
you.
in the future?
What are you going to
Wouldn't
do?
we become the joke
Big
of the
Beard
county?
Deng immediately wanted to
Square-faced
dissuade
man
her.
shook his head
But
vigorously.
Jiang Ye went straight to Chen Guang.
No, young
I was the
Master
one who
Bo
let
and
Shi
Boss
Lu
Bo
stay
are
in my
both
room,
big
and
shots
she was
in our
thought to be
county.
kidnapped.
Who would dare
I
to
can't
laugh
just
at
sit
you?
back and do nothing.
Damn it.
Old Deng
Now
still
county
wanted to
head
stop
Hu and
her.
Song Liangji
What
are
can you
already
do to
going
help?
against my dad.
Unexpectedly,
Old
Chen
Chen,
Guang
do me a
nodded
favor and
vigorously.
find an excuse
That's
to
right.
mess with them.
Get on my
It would
back.
be best if you
I'll
can
carry
detain
you.
Chen Guang
That
for a
way
few
it'll be
days.
faster.
I don't believe
Chen
that he
Guang
would dare
agreed
to
to
hit the
Jiang
police
Ye's
no matter how
seemingly
good he is at
unreasonable
fighting.
request.
If he dares to
reason was
resist,
simple.
you might as well
Even
arrange
though there
for a
were many
hot-head to
people
shoot
here,
him. The
don't
safest
worry,
place
as long
was
as I'm around,
undoubtedly
he
by
won't
his
be
side.
sentenced to death.
There was no other
I'll
choice.
take care of the fines
Anyway,
and jail
the speed
time
of
for
running
him.
alone or
He'll be
running with
released
her on
in
his
2 to
back
3
was about
years,
the same.
and when he's comfortable,
Instead
you
of
guys will
leaving
get
her
your
here,
share of the money.
it was better to
I
bring her
guarantee
with
you
him.
that I'll think of
If
a
he
way to
left,
send you to
that
Song
rich second
Liangji's
generation
position the year
surname
after
Bo
next.
realized that he
Okay?
had caught the wrong
Old
person
Chen
and
heard
boldly
this and
came
secretly
back.
sucked in a
Then
breath
he
of
would be
cold
lured
air.
away,
The
leaving his
person who
rear
came this this time had really
If
offended
Jiang Yage was
square-faced
really
Woon
kidnapped,
Song.
it would be a big
But he
problem.
really didn't dare to
Jiang
agree and
Yage
kept
flew to
shaking his
Chingguang's
head.
back.
This
Big
won't
Beard
work.
still wanted
Young
to
Master
dissuade
Bo,
her.
listen to me.
Although
This
he's
isn't
just
good.
an actor,
Isn't
he's still a
Solomon
celebrity.
more of a hindrance
If
than a
things
help?
get out of hand,
Don't
he
take
won't
her
be
with
able
you,
to stop
okay?
it.
It's not
safe.
like you haven't seen how the
Qin
whole
Guang
country
waved
has
his
been in
hand.
the limelight
There's
for the
nothing
past 2
unsafe
years.
about it.
When the time
She's the
comes,
safest with
it's
me.
not just a matter of
In
keeping
order
his
to
job,
dispel
he
Big
might even
Beard's
lose
doubts,
his head.
Qin Guang
You're
didn't
not
have
going
time
to do it?
explain to him slowly.
Square-faced man
There
said
was a
gloomily.
basketball-sized stone
You're going
next
to
to
mess
him.
with me like Song Liangji? Of course
Qin
not.
Guang held Jiang
I just
Yage's
feel that
buttocks
this
with his
isn't
right
appropriate.
hand and kicked the
It's
stone
not
with
worth
his
it.
left foot.
Actually,
He then
old
clenched
Qin
his
didn't
left
care
hand
about
into
the
a
celebrity
fist and
status
punched
of
the
Qin
stone in the
Guang
middle
and
of
the
the
others.
air. With a
He
loud
remembered that when
explosion,
he had called
the stone
Deputy
that
Chief
Qin
Song
Guang's
on the way
fist hit
back,
instantly
the latter's
exploded
voice
into a
had been
torrential
trembling.
downpour of
It was
pear
obvious
blossoms.
that he had been given
The pear
quite a fright.
blossoms scattered into
This
the
wasn't a
forest,
simple matter.
startling countless
It was definitely
birds.
not as simple
2 or
as
3 trees
Square-faced
in the
Man
distance
thought.
slowly
He
collapsed.
couldn't get involved in
It
this
was
mess.
obvious that the stone
When he
had
heard that
broken their
Square-faced
trunks.
Man actually
Big
wanted
Beardy
Qin
and the
Guang's
crew
life,
members
he
behind
was
him
so
were
scared that he
dumbfounded.
almost peed
Their
his
minds
pants.
were in a daze.
This was too
What
heavy
was
a
this?
scapegoat.
Human
He
shotgun?
was just the chief
No
of a
human
small
cannon?
scenic police
This
station,
guy could
so
turn
he couldn't
grass,
handle
trees,
it.
flying
As the
stones
two of them
into
were
knives,
talking, the
spears,
office door door suddenly kicked open. Everyone couldn't help but sympathize with the group of people who had kidnapped and a few men in black suits standing at the door with cold expressions. Those people were probably going to die. What are you guys talking about? Okay, if there's nothing else, I'm leaving. Sternly as he walked in quickly. Mr. Chin, let's go together. Old Shin hurriedly waved his hands. A few stunt doubles wanted to follow. Boss bag, but this time, nothing. Shin Guang didn't want to waste any more time. Then turned to face He ran forward with Jiang Yage on his back. His hand reached out to grab his stupid son's ear. No need. Twisting it as he said angrily, the kidnappers have accomplices. The servants that you came out again. Just don't let anything else happen. I knew you were going to cause trouble again. Before he could finish his sentence, you're really here. He and Jiang Yage had already disappeared hundreds of meters away. My ear is about to fall off. In the distance, only a spot of light could be seen shooting away. And shouted nonstop. It should be Jiang Yage holding a strong flashlight that the crew used to illuminate the area. Drag this idiot back home and lock him up. Usain Bolt won the Olympic gold medal only because you didn't participate in the Olympics. I just can't stand to see a pair of flaming wheels, right? Face my A**. Director Deng, should we inform the people in Wuxia County you've already played us to the point that we're about to lose face? Old Ma, who was dressed crookedly, poked his head out from beside a big beard and square-faced man turned back and glared at Old Shin. No, tell everyone to pack up. I don't know what that gather at the hotel faced man said to you just now. I think the police will be here soon. But that's not important. We might have to go into the mountains to help search for the kidnappers. Do you hear me? Inform the others too. Old Shin looked at square-faced man. Don't tell the police that thinking that this person is not Jiang Yage, the severity of the situation and was restraining square-faced man like never before. Understood. He didn't dare to tell him that square-faced consideration was understandable just now. He thought that the kidnapped person was Jiang Yage. So remember that boss police in Wuxia County had been mobilized. Young square-faced man didn't say much just now. Safe and sound, he just wanted me to see if I could bring just another small loopholes in their security during filming. The famous director, I didn't agree to that and had some status. Square-faced there was no doubt that she was far inferior to Jiang Yage. Inspector Shen, you've handled search and rescue efforts. I heard that even your sister bought a house in this matter would be greatly weakened. Yes, this was not difficult to understand. Your house's quality is excellent. It was a very common understanding of the world. I persuaded my sister to buy it. Shi Changha had some status in the entertainment industry. Asked your sister's family to come to my company another day. Of an artist. I'll arrange for someone to go with them to the bank to settle the prepayment. She could not be mentioned in the same breath as a talented girl like only the heavens, the earth, hiding a little information. No one else telling a white lie would not change the other party's ultimate goal of searching for the hostage. Thank you, boss square-faced man. It would make the military and police involved in the mission maintain a higher degree of attention on this matter. Tonight's trip was not in vain. Even for the grassroots man brought square-faced man home. To save whoever was saved. He was full of grievances. As long as they gave the order, they could search the mountains and pursue the kidnappers. But when the father and son arrived wanted to hide, it was a middle and high-level officials like county magistrate man turned back to look at his son. In order to protect their positions, they would definitely work harder to mobilize all the resources they followed him in. If it were Shi Lu, she would definitely not receive such treatment. I know I was wrong. The earlier they rescued her, used this trick since he was out of danger, and it was especially less likely she would be hurt. Regardless of the consequences, even if it was just a 1 in 1,000 chance mistake and admit his cowardice, was willing to bear the responsibility of hiding the information. No matter how angry his father was, he would always be able to appease his anger. On the other side, Wang and Song and the rest got out of the car and went deeper into the mountains. Reduced. Wuxia was not bragging. He had wanted to give him a good beating, professional hunter, he actually carried a portable GPS device with him. Previously, with this device, it was much more convenient to locate scoundrel friends. They hurried along the way. Brother Bao, where should we go now? It caused a huge commotion in the county, and he had to use a lot of effort to suppress the matter. We've already gotten out of the car and ran for about 10 minutes. He had also pleaded for leniency. We're almost a kilometer away. At this moment, if we go any further, we'll really walk down the stairs of the villa. Wang and Song urged, square-faced man, what are you doing? Don't stare at your son like that. Hurry up. Do you want to eat him up? The flashlight in front of them. It's not like you don't know that what they saw was a rather just a little mischievous. The wind blowing out of the forest had a damp and square-faced man. Don't bother about your dad. Here we're still considered a human settlement that has been cleaned up from time to time. The plump woman passing through this forest, we might encounter wild beasts if we go further upstairs. He was finally free. Will there be ferocious beasts? He'll get into trouble because of your blind doting. That's possible. Square-faced man glared at the plump woman. The plump woman didn't mind. What else can you do? You want to hit him for such a small matter? What if you hurt him? Song asked again. You only have this one son. Then where do we go from here? I understand. How long will it take to get there? Did you have an illegitimate child with that flirtatious and cheap female secretary long ago? If we walk straight ahead for about 25 miles, we will reach the neighboring county's illegitimate child, right? If my dad and I go hunting in the mountains, we can reach there in about 5 to 6 hours. But Master Wong, you are not familiar with the roads in the mountains. Don't think that I don't know when you're carrying a person. Nonsense. I estimate that it will take at least 8 hours to reach Maji Town. Square-faced man waved his hand furiously and went straight upstairs. We are not afraid of wild beasts. Although what the plump woman said about the illegitimate child was true, he wanted to let them leave that woman a lot of assets. But he was reluctant to do so. At most, he would leave her with a few tens of millions of assets. Would die here. He said that care about Jiang Yage's life or death at all too much. It was just that he had spent so much effort today and alarmed so many people downstairs to plead for him. He hadn't even found a way out of this embarrassing situation. which
He
made him
comforted
feel
himself
very
this way.
uncomfortable. Actually,
Let
as
her
a
come
father,
down and
I'm
walk
very
by
strict.
herself.
It's
Why
just
does
that I
she
have
have to
an
carry it?
unreasonable wife.
She saves energy,
The reason
but I am
why
tired.
Dan and Song ended
Another
up in
person
this
who was
state was
carrying
because
the
his
sack
mother
with
had
Wuxia
stood out
said
to
while
cover for
panting.
him whenever something
Wung and
happened.
Song squeezed the
It was
gun
the
in his
same
hand
with that
and thought
female
that it made
student
sense.
previously.
That's
In
true.
the end, he didn't
Shi
manage
Lu
to
wanted
teach
to hit Wung
square-faced
and
man a
Song the
lesson.
moment she was put
However,
down,
seeing
but
how
the
scared
black
he was
muzzle
just
was
now,
pointed at her head.
square-faced man thought
Wung
that
and
he
Song
might have
said
learned his
coldly,
lesson this time.
"You are messing around.
Anyway, he
Why
could
don't you
just
try
lock him
again?"
up until the
Shi
filming
Lu
crew
froze
left.
on the spot.
Nothing bad would
Her
happen,
adrenaline
right?
was still
After
stimulating the
settling
top of her
everything
head,
at home
but her
angrily,
remaining
square-faced
rationality
man
told
went
her
to
that
call
the man
county
in front of her
magistrate
might
who-
really shoot.
County
"I'm
magistrate
still
who
young,
didn't
I
say
cannot
much
die
to
here."
him.
He
I
only
must think
said
of
that
a
the
way to
provincial
survive.
government had called
Shi
to
Lu stopped
cooperate
fooling
with Deng
around.
Xiaojiang's filming
Instead,
crew,
she turned her head and
especially
looked
public
around.
security.
She knew from
They
the
didn't
beginning
allow
that
any
these people
evil
had
forces
already
to
brought
cause
her
trouble
into
to
the
the
mountain.
filming crew,
As far
and
as
they
she
were
could
also
see, the mountain
prohibited
was
from
pitch
interfering
black.
with filming
I
in the
will
name of
pretend to
Emil.
walk with them, and when they are not
Square-faced
paying
man
attention,
expressed
I
that
will
he
turn
understood.
around and run deep
There
into
wasn't
the
much
dark
to do
mountains.
tonight. Maybe I
Since
can
the
escape.
higher-ups had
If
informed
I
him
really can't
he would
escape
get Tong
and these
Yuan
people
Company
want to
to
use force,
cooperate.
I will fight with
He
them
would even
if I am
personally
killed
greet
in
the
one
other
shot.
big and small
But
forces
now
in the
I
county.
cannot give up until
County
the last
magistrate
moment.
who was very satisfied
I
with
won't mess
square-faced
around.
man's attitude
Shi
and
Lu
felt a
forced
lot
herself
more
to
at
calm
ease.
down, and then
Anyway,
pretended
thank you,
to be
boss
timid as she
square-faced man.
replied. Actually, she didn't need to pretend.
It wasn't easy for
She was
Baishui
really
County
scared
to
to
have
have
such
such
a
a situation.
It's good that you're sensible.
Square-faced man nodded.
Let's go.
Understood.
Follow in front.
Don't worry,
Deng
old
and
Hu.
Song grinned
I know what to
smugly.
do.
Seeing
That's
that she
good,
was
that's
so
good.
obedient,
I
he
won't
thought of
disturb your
Jiang Ye's
rest.
cold and aloof
Okay,
demeanor
let's
at
talk
the
when we
banquet
meet
yesterday.
again. Now she was like a frightened rabbit, and he felt a strange sense of
Chapter
accomplishment.
979.
As for Qin Guang,
After
he
hanging
carried
up,
Jiang
someone
Ye
next
next
to
to
county
county
magistrate
the
who
way
asked,
they came.
Aren't
In
you
less
going to
than
tell
2
him
minutes,
who
they
called?
passed by the
County
hotel
head
and
who
who
shook
shook
his
his
head,
head, which was
Let's
now
not
in
talk
a mess.
about it.
There's no point in talking too much. At this
He might
moment,
even
the
think that I'm
assistant
trying to
director
scare
was
him.
leading a group of
Today's
people to make a
incident had
scene at
hurt
the
his
hotel,
reputation.
accusing the
Let's
hotel
cooperate
management
with
of
the
being
higher-ups and
irresponsible.
pretend that nothing
Who would
happened
dare
after
to
he
come up
leaves.
and kidnap someone?
That's right.
The hotel
God
knew that
knows
there was
what connections
definitely a
Qin
mole
Guang
among
has.
their own people.
We have
but they
accidentally
couldn't catch
stepped
the
on the
mole in
tiger's
such a
tail.
short time. County
The people
magistrate
that
who
want
took a
Song
puff of
found
his
were all
cigarette.
local gangsters.
Don't worry, and they were
I will
familiar
call
with
the
the
city
hotel's
government.
layout. Let's
They
keep a
ran
low
out of the
profile
fire
and
escape
cooperate
after
with them.
kidnapping the people,
Let's get the
and
city
the hotel
government to
didn't
help us
notice
talk to
anything
them.
at all.
At this
Of
moment,
course, the
even if
people
they
of
found
Baishui
out if
County
the mole
still
revealed
didn't know
his
that a
identity,
disaster was
the
about to
hotel
befall
wouldn't
them.
be able to do
Things
anything
couldn't
to
be
Wang
passed
Song
just
and
because
his
they
group.
said so.
They had been
On the
acting
crew
like
side,
tyrants in
although
Baishui
something
County
had
for a
happened
long
last
time.
night,
The professional
Jiang
crew
Ye, who
still
was
got
lying
up
on
early.
Qin Guang's back.
At about 6
Saw the
o'clock,
commotion and
they got
asked,
up one after
"Should we
another
go
and
over
set
and
off
help?"
at 6:30
Qin
sharp.
Guang shook his head.
3 buses filled
No,
with
the
staff,
police will deal with
plus
it when
8
they
trucks
arrive.
filled with filming
These are all
equipment
small
and
matters.
props.
We
Rumbled
just
as
need
they
to
set
save
off
the
for the
people
depths
first.
of the scenic spot.
Turn off the
The
flashlight.
plot of the Baishui Scenic Area's
Isn't it
iconic
because we can't
waterfall
see
was
the
as
road?
follows.
Jiang
In
Ye
order to help
didn't
the
understand.
retired hero regain
Qin
his
Guang
state
patted
and
her
find
butt.
back the desire to
Actually,
win that
the
had been worn
flashlight
away
is
in
for
the
you to light
handicraft
the
shop
way.
for many years.
I don't need to look.
Jiang Ye, who
Why?
played the role of a
I
small
practiced
fan,
Kung Fu to
took him
support
to the
night
deep
vision.
mountains and
In
forests
this regard,
and let him train
Qin
like a
Guang really
savage
wasn't
in the
bragging.
mountains and forests.
There were more than
At the same
400,000
time, she spent
kinds
a
of
lot of
martial
money
arts
to
in
hire a
Wuxia.
retired Muay Thai
Among
master
them,
and
there were
pretended
no
to
less
meet
than
him by
10,000
that strengthened
Qin
eyesight.
Guang and the Muay Thai
After
master
coming
met
out to
by
the real
chance
world,
under the waterfall
although the
and had a
power of his
duel.
martial arts was
After
weakened
that,
due to
he
the
began
weakening
to
of
receive
Yin and Yang
technical
Chi,
guidance
he
and
was able
special
to use
training
his
from the
eyes
Muay
to
Thai
see the road
master.
clearly with the
Finally,
help of the
he
weak
learned some of
starlight
the
and
footwork
moonlight in the
techniques of
sky.
Muay Thai.
It was
and
no
his body
different from
functions
daytime.
gradually recovered
Jiang
to the
Ye
state
didn't
before
believe
he
it at
retired.
first. In this
After
film,
trying to
the
turn
male
off the
lead
flashlight
played by
for
Qin
more than a
Guang will
minute,
be divided
Qin
into
Guang
3
was still
ages,
walking as
from
if he
the
was
prime of
flying.
his youth to the
He wasn't
middle-aged and
affected at
finally
all.
to the old. You really
The
have night
middle-aged
vision.
will have the most
What
scenes,
else? And it will be the
Do you
most
think I'm bragging?
complicated.
He is very young now, and his makeup must be perfect to make him look like a middle-aged man.
Stop talking nonsense.
This is a great test
We
for
are
the
in a
makeup
hurry to
artist.
save people.
Fortunately,
I didn't
Qin
slow
Guang's
down.
acting skills
Didn't
are
you
excellent.
notice that we are almost
Even if there
flying?
are some flaws in the
Qin
makeup,
Guang really
his
wasn't
performance
joking.
in front of the
At
camera
this
is
time,
impeccable.
under the burst of
It was
his
about
internal
10
strength,
a.m. when
he
they
could
arrived,
cover more than
and
10
the main
meters
cast
in a
and
step.
crew started to touch
However,
up their makeup,
most of his strength
while
was
the
used to
props
push
team and crew
forward.
got busy.
He didn't raise
By the
his
time
height
they could
much,
start
so
shooting,
Jiang
it was
Yates
already
didn't feel
noon.
it was obvious.
Just in time to
The two of
receive the
them ran
bento
forward
boxes
for
that the
nearly
crew
10
had
minutes.
ordered.
They
Each
arrived
person
at the
had
place
one
where
box,
Nam
and that was
Yunkang
it.
and his group
They
abandoned
started
the car
work at
before the armed
12:30
police
a.m.,
and police.
and the afternoon
They saw
passed in
two
the blink of an
SUVs
eye.
parked on the side
The
of the
progress
road.
was faster
Qin
than Big
Guang
Beard had
touched the
imagined.
hood of the Overlord.
It's still hot. The engine has been off for almost half an hour. Jiang Yates was surprised. How do you know? Qin Guang didn't explain to her. It would be complicated if he explained it. As the invincible god of racing, he was familiar with the performance of all the cars in the world. Maybe they had police dogs, but it would take an hour to drive from the county to this location, and it would take at least an hour for them to catch up with him and Jiang Yates. Qin Guang couldn't wait any longer. What he was afraid of now was that once Wu Song realized that the pursuers were too strong, he would simply kill them. Although he had many tricks up his sleeve, he couldn't snatch a life from the hands of the King of Hell. It would be too unjust to let Shilu die just like that. Jiang Yage didn't know what he was planning, but seeing his solemn expression, she didn't dare to disturb him. Qin Guang wrinkled his nose and slightly relaxed his power. He let a drop of rainwater the size of a bean fall on his fingertip and looked down at the rainwater. The air was filled with the sour smell of dried branches and rotten leaves after being soaked in rainwater, but it was mixed with the fragrance of plants. Qin Guang smelled a different and familiar smell from this smell. The rainwater that was wrapped by his inner strength floated on his fingertip, and there was a different light that only he could see. On the whole earth, there had always been yin and yang qi that was infinitely similar to the yin and yang qi in the realm of true martial arts. However, it was so thin that it was almost undetectable, but it was of a higher realm. As for this kind of aura, there was actually no clear name in the real world. Those who cultivated their inner strength at sunrise or midday would call it the essence of the sun. People who practiced inner strength in the middle of the night would call it the essence of the moon, or the essence of the moon, and so on. People who practiced inner strength in the middle of the night would call it the essence of the moon, or the essence of the moon, and so on. In one's painting volume, it was called the righteous qi of the heaven and earth. People who practiced martial arts accumulated inner qi, breathed in and out, communicated with heaven and earth, and used it as the foundation and source to accumulate inner strength. In addition to the inner qi in the dantian, there were these different names, but the essence was exactly the same essence of heaven and earth. Otherwise, why did so many people like to practice in the beautiful mountains and forests, but make slow progress in the urban forest composed of steel and concrete? Even the One family, who had the art of stealing heaven, built their headquarters in the secret realm of the One family, which was rarely visited by people. As a martial arts museum, Qin Guang had felt the more straightforward yin and yang qi in the realm of true martial arts. After he came out of the realm of true martial arts, he generally classified it as essence of the spirit. However, this essence of the spirit was not the essence of the Xianxia stories, but referred to the spirit of outstanding people, the spirit of heaven and earth, and the spirit of all things. One spirit gave birth to Tai Chi gave birth to yin and yang gave birth to the four phases, and the four phases gave birth to the 8 trigrams, and so on. According to Qin Guang's understanding, essence of the spirit was all-encompassing and covered a wide range of things. It could be the inner strength accumulated in the body when a martial artist practiced inner strength, or it could be the fresh air that ordinary people breathed in to strengthen their bodies. At this moment, the air that Qin Guang was smelling was hidden under all kinds of smells, but it was a wisp of essence of the spirit. He had occasionally felt it before, but he had never understood it as clearly as he did now. This meant that the concentration of essence of the spirit had increased, at least twice as much as before. As for the glow in the water droplets on his fingertips, it belonged to another kind of power, a higher level power. It was the power of the Holy Grail released by his heavenly Holy Grail. This power was purer and more original, and even made the supernatural ability of the earth burner in his body more active, as if it was cheering and jumping for joy. Qin Guang did not know what was going on. He did not open any world in the cup, but why did the power of the Holy Grail and the essence of heaven and earth suddenly become more intense? Is it because I am in a hurry to save someone, so I am highly nervous, and the heavenly Holy Grail automatically cooperated with me? That's not right. This feeling did not suddenly appear today, but had been lingering ever since he returned from the Baylor Mountain of the Shattered World. Previously, the power of the Holy Grail in this world had always been becoming more intense, and this trend had never stopped. It was only today that the quantitative change finally triggered a qualitative change, crossing a certain boundary. At this moment, Dan and Song and his group of 9 people were escorting Shilu, braving the heavy rain and stepping on the mud, moving forward with difficulty. Chapter 984. Brother Bao were 2F** King Unlucky. Huzi grumbled as he chopped down the bushes in front of him. Why is it raining so heavily for no reason? Bao and Song glared at him. Isn't this your fault? Didn't you say that you know the situation in the mountains like the back of your hand? Didn't you feel anything when it rained so heavily? Huzi scratched his head. Speaking of which, it's strange. Usually, when my dad and I go hunting in the mountains, we can smell the moisture in the air with just a twitch of our noses. We can tell if it's going to rain or how heavy it will be. But today when we got out of the car and ran, I smelled it. There were almost no clouds in the sky and there were no signs of rain. Look, there aren't any clouds yet. This weather is too weird. Stop talking nonsense and lead the way. Brother Bao, why don't we think of a way to go back? The rain can wash away the footprints we left earlier, and the police dogs don't like our smell. This is a good thing, but it's also a bad thing. The road has become more difficult to walk. Based on the current situation, We might not be able to reach Maji Town in another 10 hours. I'm not afraid, but I'm afraid that you guys and this woman won't be able to hold on. Wuxia pointed to Shilu, who was surrounded by the crowd. She was limping and her face was covered in rain and mud. She looked extremely pathetic. When it rains, it pours. Shilu's luck index today was as high as 10,000 points. When she was walking just now, she accidentally slipped and fell, and her ankle might have been sprained. Now, not to mention suddenly running away, it took all her strength just to stand. Bao and Song looked at Shilu impatiently. Jiang Yage, hurry up. Don't dilly-dally, or I'll shoot you and let you feed the wolves here, believe it or not. Shilu trembled. She knew that she had been made a scapegoat, but she didn't expose her identity. Instead, she gritted her teeth without saying a word and forced herself to keep up with Wuxia's pace. She lowered her head and didn't make a sound. Wuxia turned back and said, Brother Bao, don't make such jokes when we're in the mountains. What joke? Don't talk about wolves. Although the most ferocious beasts in this mountain are bears and tigers, the biggest threat to humans is the wolf pack. They form groups and attack from the front and back, unlike lone bears. Some wolves aren't even afraid of gunshots when their ferocious nature kicks in. Dan and Song curled his lips nonchalantly. I'm just saying. I won't really come. Sai, if you believe it, it won't work if you don't believe it. When we're in the mountains, we have to be careful with our words. Alright, I won't say anything. Do we continue forward or go back? Tiger asked again. Wonk and Song hesitated for a moment, then took out his phone. He thought that if he walked further in, his phone would probably lose signal. Should he call his father and ask what the situation was like outside? If he scolded her, she would just beg for mercy. If he scolded her too harshly and she didn't listen, she would just hang up and turn off her phone. Let me ask about my dad first. Saying so, Wonk and Song turned on his phone. Before he could unlock it, the caller ID lit up. It was Ma Song, the captain of Tong Yuan's bodyguards. Perhaps he had been calling non-stop for the past hour. Picking up the call, Ma Song's voice came through. Boss. It's connected. Master Wonk has turned on his phone. Give me the phone. This was Wonk Fat Eye's voice. Hearing his father's tone, Wonk and Song subconsciously wanted to beg for mercy again. Dad, Wonk Fat Eye interrupted Wonk and Song. You little rascal. Do you know how big of a disaster you've gotten yourself into? Wonk and Song was a little indignant. It's not a big deal. I just kidnapped a female celebrity. It's not like I haven't done it before. You still have the cheek to say it. Why can't I say it? Dad, don't worry. I know the psychology of these celebrities very well. As long as I don't break her arms or legs, she won't be able to make a fart if she still wants to earn money in the future. Don't be fooled by how innocent they pretend to be in front of others. God knows how many masters they have to serve in a year. For people like them, no matter how much I torture them, they won't make a fuss. Otherwise, their reputation will be in tatters. I'll record a video of her later. She's even more afraid than I am. Bullsh*T. Moneybag was about to go crazy from anger. What kind of situation was this? His stupid son was still saying such reckless words. He remembered what county magistrate who had told him just now. Although he still didn't know Jiang Yage's identity, it was impossible for the two top military and political leaders of Kainan province to call him at the same time. If county magistrate who could say that if she lost a hair, he, as the county magistrate, would have to run away, and if Jiang Yage lost a hair, he would have to shoot Peng and Song, then her background must be beyond his imagination. Dad, don't be like this. If you only know how to scold me, I'll switch off my phone again. Wait. Hearing that his unlucky and stupid son was going to switch off his phone again, Wonk Fat Eye was afraid of him. His tone became gentler. Son, listen to me. Wonk and Song's heart skipped a beat when he heard that Wonk Fat Eye's tone had become unprecedentedly gentle. An inexplicable sense of danger rose in his heart, and he could no longer be tough. Instead, he felt a little flustered. Dad, what happened? Wonk Fat Eye's tone became gentler. It's all my fault. I spoiled you too much, and that's why you developed such a personality. I used to think that it was all your mother's fault, but now that I think about it, I'm no better. Dad, don't interrupt me. Listen, time is of the essence, so I'll make it short. Run away now and don't come back. The further, the better. Is it that serious? I'm not joking with you. Jiang Yage has a powerful background. Even if you return her unharmed, I'm afraid things won't end well. According to some people, you have to be killed on the spot for the rest of us to survive. I'm already prepared to run away. Don't look back either. The further, the better. county head who had misjudged Wang Fatai. All along, Wang Fatai had always been decisive and strict with Wang and Song in the eyes of outsiders. As a result, county head Hu and the others felt that he didn't have much affection for his good-for-nothing son. That was why county head Hu had blurted out that he wanted to kill Wang and Song in advance. He had even hoped that Wang Fatai would have some way to contact Wang and Song and calm him down before taking action himself. But Wang Fatai would never eat his cubs. All along he was the one who was most protective of his cubs. His wife was just a way for him to save face. No matter how much he tried to push the blame onto his wife, if it wasn't for him, the head of the household, who had turned a blind eye to it and helped Bang and Song clean up his mess every time, how could he have raised such a foolish son who didn't care about the consequences? All right. Wang and Song looked at Shilu's back view. The smugness and desire in his heart had mostly dissipated. Perhaps it was because of the cold rain on his head, or perhaps it was because he was frightened by Wang Fatai's words. Wait. Wang Fatai suddenly said. What's wrong? Wait a moment. The armed police and the county's police should be entering the mountains soon. I've asked around and they have police dogs with them. You might not be able to escape. What? Then what should I do? Tell me your current location. I'll bring some people to meet up with you. If they really catch up, we will fight them for a while. But what? But the real scary thing isn't the police. It's Qin Guang. Wang, you've watched Wuxia dramas before, right? Qin Guang is the kind of hero in the dramas who kills a person every 10 steps and leaves no trace behind. You must be wary of him. Don't think that you'll be safe just because you have a gun. That's impossible, right? Look at the situation now. Do you think I'm joking with you? I'm going to risk my life to fight someone for you. Stop talking nonsense. Tell me your location. Wang Fatai, who was sitting in the Bentley, gritted his teeth. He thought of the big guns in his trunk and decided to go all out. Wang and Song hurriedly called Tiger over and told him their current location, as well as the approximate route they had chosen at the last minute. The father and son hung up the phone. Ma Song, who was sitting beside Wang Fatai, asked doubtfully, Boss, are we really going to do this? Wang Fatai stared at him fiercely. What else can we do? Watch my son die in front of you? I still have a lot of assets overseas. As long as we escape, as long as there's life, we won't have to worry about young Chai. Otherwise, even if we really shoot Wang down, I'm afraid we'll still be hunted down later. If Hu Jintao wants to escape, then even Master won't be able to protect us tomorrow. We have to rely on ourselves. Brother Bun, what did your dad say? Tiger quickly asked Wang and Song. Wang and Song gritted his teeth. What else can we do? Run. We can't go back to Baishuya County now. If we go back, we'll really die. We've stirred up a hornet's nest. That's right, that woman is a hornet's nest. He pointed at Shilu's back and said, just follow the route you told my dad just now. He'll be waiting for us in the car with his men. We won't go to Maji Town. How long do you think it'll take for us to reach the mountain road? 3 hours if we're fast, if we're slow. That's fine. As long as we meet up with my dad before they catch up, we'll be able to escape. Don't stop. Hurry up. Stupid woman, you better hurry up too. I'm dead because of you this time. You have such a powerful background, why are you hiding it? If you had told me earlier, would I have attacked you? It's all your fault that we ended up like this. Wang and Song took 2 steps forward and wanted to lift his leg to kick Shilu. Unexpectedly, Shilu quickened her pace and took a step forward, causing him to kick the air. The rain and wind caused the temperature to drop exceptionally low. After walking for a long time, the pain in her ankle was so numb that she couldn't feel it. A strong desire to live supported every inch of space in her mind. Shilu's steps became firmer and faster, and she was just barely able to keep up with the others. Her determination temporarily saved her life. Since she had already decided to escape, once she showed any signs of not being able to keep up, dragging the others down, or showing signs of wanting to escape, Wang and Song would shoot her without hesitation. Chapter 985. What county magistrate who did not know was that his momentary lapse in secrecy had allowed Fortune Bringer to take the risk to protect Tong and Song. Big Beard Deng would not have expected that his decision to conceal the hostage's identity would not only fail to help Shilu, but also put her in danger. If county magistrate who knew that the hostage was not Jiang Yage, he would not have had the idea of killing Tong and Song, and would have communicated with Fortune Bringer about the matter. As long as Tong and Song was sure that Shilu had not suffered any substantial injuries, he could easily persuade Tong and Song to return her to the rightful owner. After that, he could kowtow and beg for mercy and pay compensation. He could turn a big problem into a small one and a small one into nothing. As long as Tong and Song was fine, there was room for discussion. Of course, Qin Guang was also the reason why Fortune Bringer made up his mind. After all, he had seen how martial artists killed without saying a word. Since Qin Guang had stood up for Jiang Yage at the wine table yesterday, it meant that Jiang Yage had a special place in his heart. Apart from Jiang Yage's background, as long as a woman touched a martial artist, there was only one word in his dictionary: death. In short, as long as he wanted to protect Tong and Song's life, he had no choice as a father. How did you find the direction just now? Jiang Yage was still lying on Qin Guang's back, the wind blowing on her face. She could not help but ask curiously. Qin Guang's heart was heavy, but he joked with Jiang Yage. Didn't you listen to my chant? This is a very advanced martial art that I've cultivated. It's similar to thousand-mile sound transmission, and it stimulates the guidance of spiritual energy to find the spiritual energy left behind by that group of people when they passed by. It's all kinds of emotions such as fear and nervousness. It's also mentioned in approaching science. When a person's brain is in a state of thought and emotional fluctuation, it will release brain waves. This kind of brain wave will affect the things around him. It's very weak, but it can leave traces. I can see it. Old Master Guang was getting more and more familiar with swindling people, and he could easily make up lies. Swindling, continue swindling. What kind of damned incantation is that? Mother Earth is tricking me. May the holy light guide me. You think I've never played World of Warcraft before? You put the druid and the paladin together. Jiang Yage saw through Qin Guang's scheme. Old Master Guang felt extremely awkward. How could he not be slippery when he often walked by the river? He had used too many tricks, but he didn't expect to meet someone who knew the ropes and exposed him on the spot. I made up the incantation, but I can't explain it to you. What's important isn't the incantation I recited, but my thoughts at the time. Sincerity brings results, okay? Forget it. Anyway, it's not the first day I've known you. You're always talking big. Alright, how long will it take to catch up? 10 minutes at most. Qin Guang said resolutely. In a sense, he wasn't bluffing Jiang Yage. What he said was true. Previously, when he sensed that the power of the Holy Grail in this world had become exceptionally rich, his Earth Exploder's special ability had become extremely active. This was because the Holy Grail's power, which could replace the origin energy, was constantly being converted into abundant elemental energy. Although it couldn't be compared to the soul world that he was in during the second punishment world, it was enough to support the absorption of the Earth Exploder's special ability and recover a portion of its power. Of course, ever since the end of the second punishment world, Qin Guang's Earth Exploder ability had been slowly recovering. When he killed Ouyang Tianxing, he had devoured the remaining power of the Broken World Holy Tribe, which was a huge supplement. Until now, thanks to the continuous invisible strengthening of the Holy Grail's power, his Earth Exploder ability had finally crossed a threshold. The most typical example was that he could finally try to communicate with the elemental energy of the outside world. Just now, in order to find a way to continue tracking them, he had racked his brains. First, he tried to communicate with the heaven and earth chi as a martial sage, which was the intuition of a martial artist. He then tried to use the earth-based special ability to communicate with the elemental energy. Both methods had some effect, but the answer he got was not certain. Suddenly, he had an idea and simply merged the two abilities together. While circulating his inner strength, he also tried to mobilize the special ability of the Earth Exploder. After a short attempt, he actually found the feeling. The guidance of the earth element became clearer, as though there was someone standing in front of him, constantly telling him, "Here. Here. Same here." In order to avoid having to explain the principles to Jiang Yage, he casually made up a heart sutra to muddle through. He did not expect to go for wool and come home shorn. However, this was not important. What was important was that he would soon be able to find the people and save Shilu. 5 minutes later, Qin Guang finally completely passed through the section of the road where the footprints of Wound Song and the rest had been washed away by the rain. This was the place where they had passed when it started raining. From there, the soil became muddy and their footprints became clear. At that moment, Qin Guang also discovered a new problem. There is an extra pair of footprints. What happened? The shoes are small. It should be that Shilu was put down for a period of time and walked on her own. Then why didn't she escape? This dark forest is easy to escape from. This is deep in the forest and there might be ferocious beasts around. She is a girl and did not bring any survival tools with her. She also has no way to communicate with the outside world. Even if she escaped, she might not survive. Of course, it is more likely that Wuxia and the rest have guns in their hands and she can't escape. The two of them chased for a distance before Qingguang said, "Shilu twisted her ankle here. She is injured." "These be asterisk stars." Qingguang comforted her. "Don't worry, it will be over soon. There is good news. At least it means that Shilu has not suffered any major losses." They are also panicking when they escape and have no time to do anything to Shilu. Jiang Yage nodded. "I hope so." Further ahead, Wuxia's group of 9 and Shilu, who were supposed to be escaping in a panic, stopped in their tracks and looked ahead with a face full of fear. Dark green lights were slowly rising from the dense forest in front of them like fireflies. These firefly lights were in pairs and most of them were less than half a meter from the ground. A low, hoarse groan came from all directions, accompanied by the sound of rustling. The heavy rain was still pouring, but it could not cover up these strange sounds. The starlight and moonlight were still shining brightly in the sky, but it made everyone feel even more fearful in the shadows. The green lights were getting denser and denser. They were in all 4 directions of the dense forest. Wuxia took out his saber from his waist. His teeth were chattering. Brother Bao wolf pack. What a huge wolf pack. He would never forget the story his father told him. Never run around in this forest in the middle of the night. Because you would never know when the wild wolves would quietly surround you. They were 100 times scarier than lone bears, tigers and wild boars. Your grandfather, your great-grandfather, your great-great-grandfather, they all died in the hands of the wolf pack. Wuxia licked his lips. Dad, you forgot to mention one person. That's yourself. Am I coming too now? Such a huge wolf pack was beyond his knowledge. Shilu instinctively wanted to hide in the middle of the crowd. She was so nervous that her legs were trembling and she had no strength left in her. Everyone stand up straight. We cannot fall. We must not fall. The wolves are more cunning than you think. They have quietly surrounded us. They haven't attacked us yet because we seem to be in good spirits. However, once someone falls down, they will think that we are weak. They will rush up and bite us to death without hesitation. I have never seen such a huge wolf pack. There are at least 70 to 80 of them. There might be more lurking around the perimeter. There are hundreds of them. There must be an extremely powerful wolf king in this pack. The intelligence and strength of such a wolf king is at least a few times that of a normal alpha wolf. Wuxia shouted loudly, trying his best to make his voice sound powerful. He was bluffing. Shilu pinched her thighs tightly. 2 streams of tears mixed with the rainwater flowed down to the ground. There were too many wolves. Am I going to die here in the end? Wuxia, what should we do now? Nan and Song clenched the gun in his hand tightly. His breathing was as heavy as a bellow. He would never have thought that his casual joke would become a prophecy. Although he was not a hunter, as a native of Whitewater River County, he knew how terrifying a pack of hundreds of wolves was. Wuxia's eyes turned rapidly. He frantically searched his mind for the survival method taught by his ancestors. His eyes looked around frantically. It was impossible to rush out. There was only one way. That was to climb up the tree and wait for others to bring heavy firepower to rescue them. His eyes drifted to a foot-thick tree about 4 to 5 meters away from the group. This was a dense forest. There were many trees around them that they could climb. The tree that Wuxia had chosen was rather large. It was not the closest one, but because of its special branches, it was the easiest to climb. The rainwater had made the tree somewhat slippery. But with the hook at his waist, he should be able to climb up. If he moved faster, he could probably pull Brother Meow up as well. As for the others, the 8 immortals crossed the sea and each displayed their own abilities. Everyone prayed for their own luck. After all, as long as Brother Meow's life was preserved, his father would definitely come to rescue him. However, they couldn't act rashly now. Once they showed any signs of escaping, the cunning wolves would definitely pounce on them in an instant. At that time, shooting would be of no use. Blood would only stimulate the wolves' ferocious nature. As long as the Wolf King did not die, it would not care about the lives of the weak wolves in the vanguard. It would only command the other wolves to attack like waves. Brother Meow, I have an idea. Say it. Nan and Song was burning with anxiety. Wuxia pointed to Shilu, who was in the middle of the group. Let her take a stick and go to the front. We'll take the opportunity to climb up the tree. Shilu finally broke down. No. Nan and Song did not listen to her explanation. He turned and pointed the gun at her. You choose. Either you run forward with all your might. You might be able to escape, or I'll shoot you dead. Wuxia admired Nan and Song's decisiveness. He thought that if it were him, he would really be reluctant to sacrifice such a delicate superstar. What a pity. But it was fine. Her flesh was more tender and the wolves liked it more. Shilu faced the gun and looked at Nan and Song's ferocious expression. Give her a stick. Nan and Song pouted and said, I'll give you 3 seconds to consider. Either you run out yourself or I'll shoot you dead and throw your corpse out. To me the effect is the same. Huzi secretly gestured to Nan and Song. Nan and Song and Huzi understood each other. In fact, that was what he had planned to do. When Jiang Yage ran a few steps forward and was about to reach the wolves, he would shoot her from behind. At that time, the blood splashing from her body would definitely attract all the attention of the wolves in a short time. Shilu knew that she had no other choice. She took the metal stick from a man and held it tightly in her hand. She wanted to live, not die. Taking a deep breath, she yelled crazily and waved her iron rod. She staggered and rushed towards the wolves step by step. Sure enough, the wolves' attention was attracted to her. The howling became louder, and the green glow under the night sky became lower. Huzi saw the opportunity and gave Nan and Song a look. He then shouted in a low voice, Brothers, quickly think of a way to climb up the tree. These trees are very old and there are many scars on them. Just dig and you'll be able to climb up. It's very easy to climb. Without caring about the others, Huzi turned and quickly ran towards the tree he had chosen earlier. Nan and Song followed closely while the others pounced on the nearest tree. They didn't care about the size of the tree. They grabbed a tree and tried to climb up. Huzi took out a metal hook from his waist and held it in his hands. He used each hand to hit the tree trunk and climbed up. Don't worry, brother Nan. I'll pull you up when I get up. Huzi lowered his voice and said to Nan and Song behind him. Nan and Song nodded. He turned around and aimed the flashlight and muzzle at Shilu's figure. He narrowed his eyes and said, I understand. Hurry up. Shilu's heart beat faster and faster. The wolves in front of her became clearer under the dim moonlight. There seemed to be someone shining a flashlight in their direction. These wolves had grayish-black fur, white fangs, sharp claws and cold eyes. Their tails were pointed towards the ground. The fur on their tails was straight like steel needles even under the beating of the rain. They were getting closer and closer. I'm going to die. I can't take this lying down. Shilu shouted even louder. Her thin and slender hands exploded with unprecedented strength. She waved the metal rod in her hands so hard that it was even louder than the sound of the rain, wind, and the wolves' howls. A loud howl came from the back of the pack of wolves. This was the Wolf King blowing the horn to attack. The wolves immediately responded in unison. Their ear-piercing howls pierced through the air. The wolves in front of Shilu were the fastest. They first lowered their bodies slightly, then exerted force with their hind legs and sprang forward. Nan and Song used his left ring and middle fingers to hold the flashlight. His left index finger supported the bottom of his right wrist. His right hand had never been so steady. The black muzzle was aimed at Shilu's back. There was only a crazed light in his eyes. He slowly increased the strength of his right index finger. Definitely. He had to hit her in one shot. Chapter 986. Bang. The bullet pierced through the air and went straight for the back of Shilu's head. Shilu did not know anything. She was swinging the metal rod in her hand at the wolf in front of her. She was still dreaming of beating the wolf to death and then running away. She believed that humans had potential. In a desperate situation they could explode with strength that surpassed the limits of humans. Unfortunately, she was just a mortal and her potential was limited. She did not know that there was a fatal bullet flying towards the back of her head. The speed of a bullet from a handgun was about the speed of sound. She would probably be dead the moment she heard the gunshot. As for Wan and Song, he did not look at Shilu's situation after shooting. Instead, he turned around and took the rope that Huzi threw down from the tree. He held onto it tightly and arched his back, preparing to climb up the tree. The feel of this shot was too good. It made him very confident. He was glad that he did not waste his time when he had the chance to practice shooting in the past. He thought that he was quite talented in this. Poof. At this moment, a muffled sound came from Shilu's direction. Wan and Song thought that Jiang Yage was probably dead. He then turned to look at Shilu's direction. The next moment he was stunned. Shilu was still standing there, but she had already turned her head. Even though the night was dim, Wan and Song could tell that her head had not exploded. She was indeed looking back at him. What was going on? What was going on? Why wasn't she dead? Did I miss? That was impossible. The wolf pack was still pouncing towards Shilu. They bared their teeth and were unusually fierce. But the strange thing was that every time these wolves got close to Shilu, they would howl and fly backwards without warning. It was as if something had hit them on the head, or as if they had hit an invisible wall. What the hell? Wan Song was so shocked that he even forgot to climb up the tree. The wolf pack was also ferocious. The harder it was to bite Shilu, the more they pounced on her. Even the wolves that were originally pouncing towards Wan Song and the others changed their direction and went straight for Shilu. The angry howls of the Wolf King did not stop. It was probably the Wolf King secretly commanding the pack of wolves. "Brother Wan, hurry up," Hu Zi urged from the tree. Nang Song looked around and realized that the pack of wolves pouncing from behind had gone straight for Jiang Yage. His heart calmed down a little. "Wait, I must kill her. Brother Bao, what time is this? It's better for her to live longer. Come up quickly," Hu Zi urged him again. At this time the other people who were unable to climb up the tree due to the slippery trunk also reacted, and one by one they told Wang Tsang not to shoot. Nan Song unwillingly put away his gun and turned around to climb up the tree. At this moment, a tall figure came from afar in the wind and stopped in front of Jiang Yage. The figure was so fast that the strong wind and rainwater that he brought with him hit Nang Song's body, causing his body to tilt subconsciously. He leaned against the tree trunk to barely stand up. Nang Song's pupils constricted and he forgot to climb up the tree. He swung his hand and aimed the flashlight in the direction of the black shadow. Qin Guang. In the distance, Qin Guang was standing with his hands behind his back. On his back, a girl was quickly sliding down. Then Nang Song saw the girl's face clearly from afar. It was Jiang Yage. What was going on? There were two Jiang Yages. But very quickly his attention was attracted by Qin Guang. Compared to the strange situation of two Jiang Yages, the current Qin Guang was even more terrifying. At this moment, this hero of the pugilistic world, who his father said killed a person every 10 steps and left no trace for 1,000 miles, was looking at him indifferently with a pair of extremely cold eyes. From the other party's eyes, Nang Song seemed to read an emotion. He wasn't looking at a person but a corpse. Unknowingly Nang Song's hair stood on end. An unprecedented sense of danger arose in his heart, as if he would be beheaded in the next moment. The pack of wolves was still madly pouncing in the direction of the three people. But no matter how fiercely they pounced, they hit an invisible wall and couldn't move an inch. The rain above the three of them was splashing in the air, forming a semicircular cover that slowly flowed down. This semicircular cover was the barrier that blocked the advance of the pack of wolves. "Brother Nang, hurry up." Sitting on the tree with his back facing Shilu, Hu Zi didn't know what was happening. He was still desperately urging Nang Song to pull him up. The others, regardless of whether they were on the tree or not, were all staring blankly in the direction of Qin Guang. Only then did Hu Zi realize something was wrong. He turned his head and then froze on the tree, forgetting to continue pulling the rope. My God. Nang Song finally broke free from his fear. He raised his hand and gun and shouted hysterically, "Kill him! Kill him!" Bang bang bang. He aimed his gun in the direction of Qin Guang and pulled the trigger crazily. The other two people also took out their guns from their pockets and fired in the direction of Qin Guang. But something that made them feel despair happened. In the distance, Qin Guang still had his left hand behind his back, but he stretched out his right hand with his palm facing forward and his 5 fingers spread out. A silent but visible vibration was emitted from his palm, causing the water that was slowly flowing down the wall to scatter in all directions. Under the light of the flashlight, the water droplets that were blown away were crystal clear and extremely alluring. But under this different kind of beauty, there was a scene that made people despair. All the bullets that were shot by the 3 pistols, other than the ones that flew off, were all shot in the right direction. It was as if they had shot into a transparent quagmire, quietly floating in the air in front of Qin Guang's 5 fingers. The scattered bullets seemed to be embedded in the invisible air barrier in front of Qin Guang. Click, click sounds came one after another. He didn't know when, but the gun in Nang Song's hand had already fired all the bullets. The gun barrel was burning hot, but his heart was piercingly cold. Similar sounds came from the direction of the other 2 gunmen. There were no more bullets. Unfortunately, their crazy shooting had no effect. Qin Guang was still in the same posture with his right hand in front of him, but the bullets floating in front of him had become more numerous. Rainwater continued to pour down from above the dense forest, hitting the circular energy cover before flowing down. When it passed by the bullet floating in the air, it was sliced to the sides, but then flowed through the middle of the bullet in an extremely orderly circular arc. Time seemed to have completely stopped at this moment. Even Jiang Yage, who was standing behind Qin Guang, and Shi Lu, who was sitting paralyzed on the ground and turned her head to look in this direction, were completely stunned. There was no sound between heaven and earth, not even the rain dared to come close. Perhaps only the wolf pack, who didn't know what was happening, was still madly attacking in vain. Nong Tsang unknowingly dropped the gun in his hand and knelt on the ground. "I beg you, don't kill me. I know I was wrong. I beg you." He finally completely believed what his father had said. There really were heroes in this world. In a sense, the power that Qin Guang had displayed was even more terrifying than the heroes in television dramas. It was almost like immortal arts and evil arts. He finally understood why the first Jiang Yage didn't die after the first shot. It must have been because he shot a drop of water from afar that caused the bullet to deviate. Why was I so stupid? How could I dare to provoke such a person? He knelt on the ground and hammered his head into the mud in front of him again and again. The others weren't much better. They all followed Nong Tsang's actions and knelt on the ground, kowtowing crazily. Even the wolf pack, which had never stopped attacking, was forgotten by these people. Qin Guang's attention wasn't on them. He just waved his hand impatiently. "Beg for mercy? It's too late." He flicked the fingers of his right hand as if he was shooing away flies. The bullets floating in front of him instantly turned around and flew backward, even faster than when he fired the gun. The effect of fusing the dart technique with the release of inner strength was unexpectedly good. It was accurate, fast and ruthless, and it even had the range effect of multiple shots. 9 consecutive sounds of flesh being pierced were heard, and a bloody hole suddenly appeared between the eyebrows of Dan and Song, Hu Zi, and the others. Then they didn't even have the time to scream before they silently fell to the ground. Those who had already climbed up the tree fell with their heads up and fell to the ground like a piece of torn cloth. There was no more sound. Jiang Yage and Shi Lu both covered their mouths. The 2 girls didn't expect Qin Guang to kill them so decisively. "Alright, stop daydreaming here. It's not over yet. It's just a few bastards that died, it's not worth mentioning." Qin Guang turned around and waved his hand casually. As Jiang Yage helped Shi Lu up, she asked in confusion, "Aren't these wolves unable to pounce on us? What's there to be afraid of?" Qin Guang rolled his eyes. "You think it's easy for me? Inner strength is free. Cabbages. These wolves aren't simple." As Qin Guang spoke, he pulled the 2 behind him and looked around with a serious expression. Jiang Yage muttered to herself, "What's so strange about it? Aren't they just wild huskies?" Of course, she only thought about it in her heart. She wouldn't say it out loud. Shi Lu clenched her fists and curled up behind Qin Guang. Her heart was pounding. Just now, when she was about to swing the stick at the wild wolf in front of her, she heard a poof at the back of her head. Then a gust of wind brushed past her face. Something flew past her ear and cut off a chunk of her hair. Almost at the same time, she heard a gunshot and knew that Wang Qinsong had shot at her. But at this moment she still didn't know why the bullets missed. Just as she turned back to look at Nong Nsong, under the illumination of Nong Nsong's flashlight, she saw with her own eyes 2 water droplets shooting from the side behind her, hitting the heads of the wolves that were pouncing over and sending these terrifying beasts flying. Only then did she understand that someone had used the water droplets to help her block the bullets. Then Qin Guang carried Jiang Yage on his back and descended from the sky. Then Jiang Yage came down from his back. Jiang Yage had just landed on the ground when gunshots rang out again. This time they came from more than one direction. At that time Shi Lu thought that the 3 of them were going to die. But Qin Guang, who was standing at the front, just opened his hands and the bullets stopped abruptly in front of them. Before she could react to what was going on, the bullets flew out again. Wang Qinsong and the others, who were extremely vicious in her eyes, died on the spot. All of this happened too quickly and didn't give her much time to think. "Shi Lu, don't worry. It's fine. With him here we're very safe. Even if the sky falls he can hold it up." Jiang Yage, who was supporting Shi Lu, said with a smile. She didn't take the wolves in front of the 3 of them seriously. "Whoa." The Wolf King's howl sounded again, but it wasn't an order to retreat. Instead, it was like a war drum to boost the morale of 2 armies. The wolves that were advancing in waves were getting closer. They didn't show any signs of retreating. Instead, they became even crazier. Under the Wolf King's command, the wolves didn't attack the 9 corpses on the ground. Instead, they continued to surround Qin Guang and the other 2. More and more wolves were densely packed. It was a sight that made one's teeth ache. "Qin Guang, hurry up and kill them." Jiang Yage didn't understand why Qin Guang looked like he was facing a great enemy. Although the wolves were scary to ordinary people, she didn't think that these big dogs could pose a threat to him. However, Qin Guang paid no attention to her and continued to look at the wolves. Actually, before he came closer, he had a faint feeling that something was wrong. If there was really nothing strange about these wolves, when he flicked the water droplets over with his fingers, even the smallest water droplets should have been able to smash the skulls of these wolves. But the reality was that even though these wolves were sent flying, they rolled on the ground twice and were covered in mud. Then they shook their heads and stood up again. They recovered quickly and continued to attack. Qin Guang focused his attention and kept the internal energy and superpower in his body in a highly active state. He sensed an extremely familiar scent from these wolves. It was elemental energy. It was extremely complicated and not strong. It was much weaker than Ouyang Tianxing's, but it existed objectively. The elemental energy in the world that was transformed from the power of the Holy Grail was too rich. The elemental energy in these wolves was even richer. They had mutated. At this moment, Shi Lu, who was supported by Jiang Yage, heard Jiang Yage talk to Qin Guang like that and felt an indescribable sense of envy in her heart. But she knew that it was useless. Jiang Yage and Qin Guang had known each other when they were down and out. They were true friends who had gone through thick and thin. Now that Qin Guang had made a name for himself and changed his identity, the gap between them was too big. If she wanted to be like Jiang Yage and take the initiative to get close to him, even if she had a clear conscience, it would still be inappropriate in the eyes of others and even him. Just the ability that he had displayed now made him like the stars in the sky. Although she was considered beautiful in the eyes of ordinary people, she was ultimately just a mortal on the ground. There was a saying that went, "You can only blame yourself for not being able to meet again." The Wolf King howled again, but it was different from before. This time it was much closer. It seemed like it was not satisfied with hiding behind the pack of wolves and chose to go into battle personally. In the blink of an eye, a giant wolf about 1.5 meters tall and 2 meters long, so large that it did not look like a wolf but more like a tiger, slowly walked out from the path that the pack of wolves had opened up. Under the moonlight and the rain, its silver-white fur glistened and faintly had a metallic luster. This was a rare mutated silver wolf. Unlike other wild wolves that walked around with their teeth bared, this Wolf King only opened its mouth from time to time and revealed its eerie white teeth. The steps were slow but firm. Its front paws were extremely strong and were thicker than a human's thigh. The front paws that were exposed were like sharp daggers that easily cut through the gravel where its paws landed. Even Jiang Yage, who was originally very confident in Qin Guang, held her breath when she saw this Wolf King. She did not dare to rashly disturb Qin Guang. Chapter 987. With the appearance of the Silver Wolf King, the morale of the other wolves was boosted. Previously the wolves were almost exhausted, but now they recovered quite a bit. Following behind the Silver Wolf King, 8 huge wolves that were much taller and stronger than the other wolves appeared. They were only slightly smaller than the Silver Wolf King. These 8 huge wolves looked extraordinary as well, and the colors of their fur were different. Some of the huge wolves were pitch black, but it wasn't the normal kind of black. Instead, it seemed to absorb all the light around it. If it wasn't for its green eyes and the white teeth in its open mouth, ordinary people wouldn't even notice the existence of this wolf. There were also other huge wolves that were scarlet, blue, or green. They almost took up all the colors of the rainbow. Including the ink black wolf, there were exactly 8 of them. What's going on with these wolves? This time it was Shi Lu's turn to shout out in panic. Qin Guang pulled back his hand and gestured for the 2 of them to come closer to him. "I think I've met my kind." "Your kind?" Jiang Yage asked in confusion. Qin Guang grunted. "Yes, my kind. I can't explain it in such a short time, but all you need to know is that there's something that shouldn't exist in this world." Now that things had come to this, Qin Guang didn't have the energy or time to ask why the power of the heavenly Holy Grail would continue to increase, and why the ordinary wolf packs on Earth would become like this, with their bodies filled with rich elemental powers. The heavenly Holy Grail wasn't in his hands, and Azure wasn't in the mood to take the initiative to talk to him. He had to rely on himself for everything. In any case, he had to slaughter this group of reckless beasts first. Actually, if everyone could calm down and sit down for a proper discussion, Qin Guang might be able to use his special skills as a language master to communicate with a wild animal with high intelligence like the Silver Wolf King. After all, he was also a master of shady transactions. There was nothing in this world that couldn't be shady transactions. If one shady transaction couldn't solve the problem, then he would do it a second time. It was a pity that the other party didn't seem to have any intention of communicating with them. Instead, for some reason he seemed particularly irritable, determined to bite them to death. Strangely enough, unlike other ferocious beasts, the probability of wolves taking the initiative to attack humans was not high, even though they were terrifying. Because of their high intelligence, the wolves knew that humans were different from the other beasts in the mountains and were more dangerous. Although the wolves were ferocious, they were not willing to easily become enemies with humans. Otherwise, the things in the hands of humans would pose a great threat to them. But this time they attacked the humans without any fear of death. Even though Qin Guang had used water droplets as darts to knock them to the ground over and over again, and even though Dan and Song and the rest had fired wildly, they still could not shake the frenzied wolf pack in the slightest. It seemed that not only did the elemental energy make them stronger, it also made them more bloodthirsty and relentless. However, there was also another possibility. The overly powerful Silver Wolf King had inflated its ego. It led the wolves to attack the humans not because they were hungry but because it wanted to test how strong its newly acquired power was. Just as Qin Guang was analyzing the situation in his mind, the Silver Wolf King in front of him had already let out a roar and was the first to charge forward. The Silver Wolf King looked huge, but its movements were extremely fast. It crossed a distance of more than 10 meters in the blink of an eye, and in the next moment, it was already in the air with its claws spread open, and it pounced towards Qin Guang from above. From the Silver Wolf King's brief movements, Qin Guang could sense a hint of the earth cutter that he had fought before. However, it did not have the earth element in its body, but an even sharper type of elemental energy which was a little metallic. As the Silver Wolf King led the charge, the other wolves around it also charged forward in unison, as if they were going to launch their final attack. For a moment, the wolves surrounded Qin Guang and the others from all directions, with the Silver Wolf King as the leader, the 8 mutated giant wolves as support, and the remaining dozens of wolves as support. An unprecedented amount of elemental energy, something that had never appeared on Earth, charged towards Qin Guang in a frenzy. The Silver Wolf King was still flying in the air when it suddenly opened its mouth, and a silver ray of light shot out from its tongue, piercing through the air towards the space between Qin Guang's eyebrows. The other 8 mutated giant wolves also unleashed their own abilities. The shadow wolf that was as black as ink spat out a ball of black mist from its mouth. It seemed to be moving slowly, but it was actually flying towards Qin Guang at an extremely fast speed, devouring the light along the way. It was actually the rare power of darkness. The giant green wolf clawed at the ground with its claws, and 2 rays of green light filled with the power of the wind element flew out in a crisscrossed manner. The giant blue wolf's fur stood on end, and it did a somersault in the air, turning its back towards Qin Guang. The fur on its body instantly froze, and countless ice needles shot out from its back like lightning. It looked like a porcupine launching an attack, but its power was many times greater. The giant red wolf was of the fire element, and it opened its mouth to spit out a fireball. The fireball grew in the heavy rain, illuminating the surroundings as it swept towards Tang Wulin. The 8 mutated giant wolves each had their own unique characteristics, but none of them were to be underestimated. As for the other wolves, although they were not as strong as the Silver Wolf King and the mutated giant wolves, many of them also displayed special abilities brought about by the power of the elements. For example, their fangs grew longer, or their claws emitted sparks, or their bodies suddenly expanded, becoming exceptionally large. If not for the fact that they were in a life-and-death situation, the 2 girls, Jiang Yage and Shi Lu, would have been dazzled by the dazzling attacks in front of them. At this moment, the 2 girls did not know what they could do, nor did they know what kind of situation they were facing. If not for the fact that it was happening right in front of their eyes, the 2 of them would have thought that they were filming a Hollywood fantasy movie. As actors, the 2 of them had acted in all kinds of strange things in movies. If it were an ordinary person, they would have long since fainted. Even so, they could only hold their breaths and stare blankly at the broad back of the man in front of them, pinning all their hopes on Qin Guang. Faced with the oncoming attack of the wolf pack, Qin Guang, who was previously extremely fearful, felt much more relaxed. Fortunately, these wild beasts were only enjoying the leftovers brought about by the power of the Holy Grail. To an ordinary person, they might be so powerful that they were almost undefeatable, but in front of a high-level elemental creature like him, the Earth Popper, their abilities were not enough. You lowly beasts. You want to use me as a touchstone for your special abilities? I'm sorry, but you found the wrong target. All of you have to kneel and call me grandfather. Qin Guang laughed coldly and suddenly spread his arms. The strength of the martial sage realm burst forth from his left hand, while the special ability of the Earth Popper spread out from his right. The 2 equally powerful forces instantly intertwined in the middle of his hands, and in the next instant, they turned into a pillar that replenished the invisible barrier in front of him. The silver light spat out by the Silver Wolf King was the first to collide with the barrier. With a crisp sound, the silver light only managed to break through the barrier for a short while before it was completely destroyed by the special ability of the Earth Popper, which was many realms higher than it, and returned to its most basic elemental energy. The attacks of the other 8 mutated giant wolves seemed terrifying, but in reality they were not much better. They were all blocked outside. Jiang Yage and Shi Lu were both inside the colorful circular barrier. Even though they knew that they were not out of danger yet, the two of them were still completely immersed in the incomparably dazzling brilliance. It was natural for girls to love beauty. At this moment, Shi Lu had escaped from death, and the tension in her heart had greatly eased. With Jiang Yage's consolation, she firmly believed in Qin Guang's strength. Jiang Yage was even more blind, believing that as long as he said it, he would definitely be able to do it. At this moment, the two of them were nervous but not nervous. Amidst their fear, there was also a sense of steadfastness and determination. They could not control their emotions at all, and subconsciously immersed themselves in the magnificent brilliance before them. However, the two of them were pulled back to reality in the blink of an eye. This was because the ordinary wolves had already pounced on the barrier. Their wide-open bloody mouths seemed to be within reach, and the saliva dripping from their sharp fangs looked disgusting and terrifying. The two girls subconsciously hugged each other tightly and screamed involuntarily. However, the wolf pack's attack was futile. Unlike the previous attacks that were only blocked and bounced off, the invisible barrier that was once again fused with an even more powerful inner force and earth elemental energy wrapped around these reckless wolves. It was as if they had flown into a quagmire in a swamp, and then ruthlessly tore them apart like a meat grinder. Boiling red blood splattered all over the sky. Bits of flesh and white bones mixed with broken fangs flew in all directions. This scene was bloody yet bewitchingly beautiful. Upon seeing this, the originally arrogant Silver Wolf King let out a blood-curdling cry. Its body abruptly stopped in midair as if defying gravity. It twisted its body in a strange manner in midair, and turned around in an attempt to escape. Accompanying the Silver Wolf King's blood-curdling cry, which also sounded like an order to retreat, the remaining 70 to 80 wolves also turned around and ran, scattering in all directions. With the heavenly Holy Grail in his hand, as the world's most powerful martial artist, as well as the ultimate elemental form of the Earth Marmalade Exploder, Qin Guang, who could be mentioned in the same breath as a god emperor, how could he lose to these mutated beasts that had eaten his leftovers? Beasts were still beasts after all. If they really had the intelligence of humans, they would have known from the beginning that they were no match for Qin Guang. By the time they finally realized that they had found the wrong opponent, it was already too late. Qin Guang's eyes were bloodshot. Since he had run into these mutated beasts, he could not let even one of them escape. Otherwise, if ordinary people ran into them, even an armed army might not be able to deal with them. Trying to run? No way. Qin Guang stomped his right foot heavily on the ground. With him as the center, a loud rumbling sound came from the ground 100 meters away. In an instant, an earthen wall about 15 feet tall rose out of thin air. At first glance, these earthen walls did not look like anything special, but upon closer inspection, they looked like countless intertwining quicksand. Chapter 988. The wild wolves that were on the periphery were the first to collide with the wall. These beasts did not know how powerful the wall was and only tried to scratch with their claws. However, as soon as their claws reached in, they were instantly wrapped up by the quicksand on the surface of the wall, unable to escape. Qin Guang snorted coldly. He spread open the fingers of his right hand and clenched his fist. Sand-binding coffin. Following his shout, the wild wolves that were caught in the quicksand wall all screamed and exploded in the sand, as if they had been crushed by a giant's fist. You're running your mouth again. You think I haven't seen Naruto before? Jiang Yage, who had calmed down again, immediately exposed this guy who was too lazy to give a name to his ultimate move. Although she did not know how he did it, nor did she understand what kind of ability it was, Jiang Yage subconsciously understood that this was definitely not something that could be explained by a simple inner force martial artist. However, this was not important at all. He was Qin Guang anyway. Even if he could open his mouth and swallow the sun into his stomach, there was no need to make a fuss about it. The remaining wolves knew that they were powerful and immediately stopped in front of the quicksand wall. They did not dare to move an inch forward, but the wall was too high for them to jump over. The Silver Wolf King and the 8 mutated giant wolves also rushed to the front of the quicksand wall. These 9 giant wolves were quite capable. The Silver Wolf King's hind legs bounced off the ground and shot up into the sky like a cannonball. At a glance it seemed like it could directly jump over. The Emerald Wind Wolf King, on the other hand, directly floated up into the air. The khaki-colored giant earth element wolf did not know what was good for it. It dived head first into the quicksand wall, as if it wanted to turn into soil and pass through the wall. Unfortunately, as soon as its elemental power came into contact with the power of Qin Guang's kind, which was countless times higher, it was instantly suppressed and died on the spot. On the other side, the Silver Wolf King rushed higher and higher. Just as it was about to escape, the quicksand wall suddenly expanded under Qin Guang's secret control. It shot up into the sky, and the top continued to gather above Qin Guang's head. In the blink of an eye, the quicksand wall had become a pot lid, covering the 3 people and the remaining 60 to 70 wolves. This move could also be called closing the door and beating the dog. Qin Guang turned around and shrugged at Jiang Yage and Shi Lu. Why don't you close your eyes later? The next scene is a little bloody and not suitable for children. After saying that, he turned around and walked forward, cracking his knuckles. Despairing, the Silver Wolf King turned around and pounced. This time, Qin Guang did not use his superpower. His Martial Sage Realm Genuine Qi burst out and he used the real Martial Sage unique skill, True Martial Divine Skill. His body was indestructible. He stretched out his hands and grabbed the upper and lower jaws of the Silver Wolf King. His fingers locked onto its teeth and tore them apart. Die. The Silver Wolf King was torn in half. A merciless massacre had officially begun. From start to finish it took less than a minute. When the wall of quicksand returned to the ground, all that was left was a ground covered in blood and broken wolf corpses. Qin Guang returned to the stunned Jiang Yage and Shi Lu and shrugged. I'm sorry, I didn't want to make it so bloody. Actually, I used my other ability to maintain the wall of quicksand. I don't have much inner force left, so I could only rely on my physical body to solve the problem. I didn't scare you, did I? Jiang Yage and Shi Lu shook their heads in unison against their will. But soon Jiang Yage vomited with an "oh," while Shi Lu burst into tears. She was scared out of her wits. Shi Lu cried for a few minutes until her tears were almost dry. Then she looked around and began to vomit again. Jiang Yage didn't cry, but in a few minutes she vomited all the stuff in her stomach, and her bile was almost gone. Qin Guang did not rush them. He stood behind them and patted them on the back. Then he sat down cross-legged on the ground. Anyway, the military police of Baishui County were approaching quickly, so he might as well wait for them here. Of course, it was not because he wanted to wait for someone but because, although it was easy for him to deal with the wolves, he had used up a lot of his inner force and superpower. Ever since he cultivated the true martial skill and became a martial sage, Qin Guang had not felt empty in his stomach for a long time. Now that he was feeling weak, he was not used to it. Thus, he seized the time to meditate. On one hand, he was trying to recover his inner force as soon as possible. On the other hand, after the wolves died, the elemental power in their bodies was slowly released. Although Qin Guang could only absorb the earth elemental power, other than the Silver Wolf King and the 8 mutated giant wolves, the elemental power in the bodies of the other wolves was very heterogeneous. Among the various elemental powers that were released after their deaths, there was more or less some earth element. Even the relatively pure Silver Wolf King and the 8 mutated giant wolves had a lot of impurities in their bodies. Otherwise, their ranks would not be so far apart from Qin Guang. He was the original and only great earth exploder in the endless realm of the gods. Although the name wasn't very elegant, it was actually like the stone monkey that had existed since Pangu created the world, standing proudly above the East Sea, and was born from the 5-colored stone left behind by Nuwa when she patched up the heavens. The Great Earth Exploder was the highest rank of elemental life that had never appeared in the endless realm of the gods. The elemental power in its body was also 100% pure. However, those that were lower than it, such as the Great Earth Chaotic Being, had not reached absolute purity. Perhaps it was 99% and N9s after it. However, no matter how many digits there were after the decimal point, it could only be infinitely close to absolute purity. It could not really cross this critical point. Just like in the real world, whether it was 1,000-foot gold, 10,000-foot gold or 24K gold, there was no absolute 100% pure gold. Even if there was an impurity of other atoms, it could not be called pure gold. Modern scientists believe that humans are unable to create absolutely pure substances, because molecules and atoms can diffuse. However, this was not the case for Qin Guang. He was absolutely pure and did not contain any impurities. Great Earth Exploder. Now that the entire pack of mutated wolves had been annihilated here, the earth element in the vicinity was particularly rich. It was a rare opportunity to use his special ability. Qin Guang simply took this opportunity to use his special ability to absorb the earth element around him like a whale sucking in water. In short, when the two girls were almost done crying and vomiting, Qin Guang also entered a shallow state of meditation. Although the two girls were scared to death, they did not dare to rashly disturb him when they saw him meditating like an old monk. They did not know what was so special about people who practiced martial arts. Wasn't it shown on television that martial arts masters should not be touched when they meditated? They could easily go berserk and they had to balance yin and yang in order to suppress it. Jiang Yage turned her head to look at Shi Lu and thought to herself, I must not touch him. I must definitely not touch him. Otherwise it would be too terrifying. Someone would definitely die. As for whether it would be one more or one less life, it was not certain. If his output was a little larger, maybe there would be 2 more lives? But I would definitely faint and so would Shi Lu. When others came over and found this guy in the F***ck, it would really be unimaginable. Unconsciously, Jiang Yage pulled Shi Lu further and further away, at least maintaining a distance of 5 or 6 meters from Qin Guang. Sister Yarge, we are, Shi Lu said with a trembling voice. She was a little scared when she was far away from Qin Guang. Jiang Yage patted her on the shoulder. Don't worry. All martial arts masters are like him. When they are tired of killing, they have to quickly meditate and chant scriptures to avoid having inner demons in their hearts. Shi Lu suddenly understood. I see. It's so hard for him. Jiang Yage rolled her eyes. Hey, what hard work? He's just pretending to chant scriptures. Forget it, let's not disturb him. It's really a little cold. Shi Lu nodded. Leaving Qin Guang's side, he didn't use his internal energy to block the rain. The two of them had been drenched all the way until now and their bodies were really cold. Shoo, shoo. The two of them sneezed one after another. After a while, the rain in the sky suddenly stopped. The moonlight shone down and sparkled. If it weren't for the muddy ground, no one would have imagined that there would be a downpour in this forest tonight. However, Jiang Yage and Shi Lu didn't have a chance to warm up. The rain stopped, but the wind inexplicably became stronger again. At the same time, a strange wind blew from all directions and gathered in Qin Guang's direction. Jiang Yage and Xia Lu could see the strange phenomenon because they found that the leaves around them were all floating in the direction of Qin Guang at the same time. These leaves were wrapped in the wind and kept floating toward him. They gathered around him and spiraled up above his head, almost forming a tornado that swept up to the sky. What the hell is this? Jiang Yage was dumbfounded. Shi Lu's teeth were chattering from the wind. She had already suffered a great shock tonight, and she had to endure all the way here. Now she had caught a cold and the ground was covered in blood. Her willpower was still strong, and if it was someone else they would have already given up. Jiang Yage reluctantly helped her up and sat on the ground with their backs against the tree. She couldn't care less about the muddy ground under them. Qin Guang also didn't expect that eating some soil would cause such a big commotion. Although it was a shallow meditation, it was only to guard against murderous aura and killing intent. As for the wind and rain, it wasn't within his scope of consideration. He didn't know that because of his crazy absorption of elemental energy, it caused a tornado to form around his body. This went on for more than half an hour before he finally stood up in a refreshed state. His inner force had recovered by more than half, and the Earthburster's ability was a great supplement. It was even more nourishing than when he swallowed Ouyang Tianxing's ability. Anyway, Qin Guang didn't want to leave a mouthful of soup for others to drink. He could absorb the Earth elemental ability, and it was rare for him to be able to set up a stance. He might as well absorb it all, until the concentration of the Earth elemental energy could no longer support his absorption, and he could barely feel its existence. At this time he still didn't know that he had actually absorbed all the Earth elemental energy in the surrounding thousands of miles. Elemental energy was different from air. It could be said to be invisible, but it was also tangible and much lighter than air. The range of the elemental energy that Qin Guang absorbed was huge. The Earth elemental energy came from all directions at an extremely fast speed, many times faster than the speed of sound. However, the wind it brought was not that fierce, and it was a bit like electrolytic ions flowing through a solution. He stretched lazily and shouted, "Awesome!" Then he began to look around for Jiang Yage and Shi Lu, shouting, "We can't wait for them. Let's go back." 3 minutes later. F***ck. Curry, curry, curry. He ran under a big tree and dug away the thick layer of leaves that had almost piled up into a grave. He looked at the two girls hiding behind the tree with blue lips, hugging each other for warmth, but failed miserably and fainted from the cold. Qin Guang's heart ached so much that he couldn't breathe. What suffering! Chapter 989. After a while, he transferred qi to the two of them, used his inner force to help them get rid of the frostbite in their bodies, and hurriedly used his earth ability to build a cave around the three of them to block the wind. Then Qin Guang used the all-encompassing inner force of the true martial divine skill that could change attributes at will to form a flaming saber. He weakened the power and slashed at the extremely sturdy cave wall. Eat the first form of my flaming saber. Eat the 77th form of my flaming saber. In short, the cave warmed up just like that. After about 10 minutes, Jiang Yage was the first to wake up. She opened her eyes in a daze. Is this hell? Nodding his head, Qin Guang responded, that's right. This is the meat toilet hell. I'll have to trouble benefactor to raise your butt. You're winning. It's not convenient for me right now. Jiang Yage calmed down the moment she heard Qin Guang's voice. She shook her head and woke up. Then she gave Master Guang a rude awakening. Qin Guang didn't want to speak anymore. It's not convenient for you and you're telling me you want to train. Are you going to perform a red fountain for me? Jiang Yage was bashful. I just came a day early. It was frozen out. As she spoke, she touched Qilu's forehead. Oh my God. It's so hot. It's at least 50 to 60 degrees. She's burning up so badly. Shut up. If it's 50 to 60 degrees, it's almost done. Don't be so surprised. I just used the weakened version of the flaming saber to add some heat to the two of you. The heat hasn't dissipated yet. Jiang Yage nodded. Okay, but aren't you afraid of being sued for copyright infringement? Isn't this Jiumaji's Kung Fu? Can you think of a more reliable name? Why do you even read the demigods and semi-demons? Why do you see through my nonsense every time? What's the name of the flaming saber? Jiang Yage blinked. She realized that she was extremely curious about everything about Qin Guang. Even if it was just some random nonsense, it was still very attractive to her. He was like a black hole, sucking in all of her rationality. Too perfect, too handsome, how could there be such an impeccable man in this world? I'm so lucky to be born in this era and to be able to meet him at the best age. He just did not know, if a martial arts master like him farted, would it smell good because the conception and governing vessels had been opened and there were no impurities in his body? Blarg. Qin Guang recalled the awkwardness of learning this martial art in the realm of true martial. He shook his head and said, well, don't ask these useless questions. Say it. Jiang Yage began to act coquettishly. The more he didn't want to talk about it, the more she wanted to know. Qin Guang blushed. Don't laugh at me. Okay, I swear I won't laugh. Qin Guang took a deep breath and said, this move is called the Super Force Crimson Flame Floating Saber that can't lose to the Flaming Saber. Damn, the martial emperor who developed this martial art in the realm of true martial must be a retard. I won't laugh, I really won't laugh. Jiang Yage was stunned for a few seconds and began to beat her chest and stamped her feet. She really did it. She really endured it, but her chest was almost hammered flat. Qin Guang sighed. In fact, the retarded martial art he learned in the realm of true martial was far more than this. He also had 10 unique skills. Just by saying the names, he could make one Buddha born and 2 Buddhas go to heaven, okay? Forget it, it's not important. Well, if there's nothing else, let's go. I'll carry Qilu. Although she should be fine, it's better to go to the hospital. Just as he was about to leave, there was a loud noise outside. Qin Guang pricked up his ears and listened. He stopped Jiang Yage again and signaled for her not to act rashly. Indeed, people came, but it was not the armed police or the armed police. The faint human voice drifted in from outside. It was the voice of Fortune Monger. Like father like son, Bao Ensang had become a malignant tumor, and his father, Fortune Monger, was to blame. This time, Bao Ensang even kidnapped Jiang Yage, but Fortune Monger still braced himself and brought people to deal with the aftermath. However, he was only here to collect his son's corpse. Boss, what situation is this? Why are there so many wolf corpses? Ma Song, why are you asking me? How would I know? My God, what the hell is going on? Why is there such a huge wolf pack? There are at least hundreds of corpses here, right? Boss, there are no bullet holes on these wolves' bodies and there are no knife marks either. It's a bit like what? It's like they were torn apart by a terrifying force or crushed to death. The ones here are even worse. They've all been smashed into pieces as if they were thrown into a meat grinder. That's not the most important thing. *CK. These wolves are really big. Silver wolves? My god. Ma Song. Why are there silver wolves here? And they've even been torn into two. This silver wolf is almost the size of a horse. As the local tyrant of Whitewater River, Fortune Sack had heard many stories about wolves from the older generation. Silver wolves were a mutated breed that only appeared once in 100 years. Once they matured, they would be extremely ferocious and powerful. Furthermore, they had astonishing intelligence and were extremely cunning. But what he saw now was the corpse of the Silver Wolf King, who had died a terrible death. Ma Song also leaned over and sucked in a breath of cold air. Fortune Monger stomped his feet anxiously. Quickly search the vicinity. There might have been a very terrifying battle between beasts here. I don't know what happened to Bao and Song. Boss, there's a very strange mound over there. Why do you care about the mound? Find him for me. Gu, didn't you say you're the most familiar with the situation in the mountains? Come tell me what's going on. Fortune Monger pulled a shifty-eyed skinny man in plain clothes in front of him. The one who could make them rush here more than an hour earlier was this veteran hunter surnamed Gu, Huzi's uncle. At this moment, this hunter surnamed Gu was stunned. Boss Monger, I don't know either. If not for the fact that he could not afford to offend this group of people, Gu would have run away long ago. As a hunter, he knew very well how terrifying this scene was. The Silver Wolf King was a terrifying beast that could even contend with tigers, not to mention its huge size. Yet it had died such a terrible death. This could only mean that the monster that slaughtered the wolf pack was 10 times scarier than the wolf pack. This was completely beyond his understanding. He even felt that the monster might have become a spirit, just like what was written in the supernatural novels. Perhaps it had something to do with the smooth mound that should not have appeared in the forest. Gu was definitely a genius. He could even buy a lottery ticket because he had guessed it correctly. Boss, found it. Over here. At this moment there was a scream from further away. Fortune Monger pulled Gu along and ran towards the source of the scream. A minute later, a heart-wrenching scream resounded through the forest. Son, you died so tragically. My son. This is a gunshot wound. Who is it? Who is it? I want to tear him to pieces. Bastard. Bastard. Fortune Monger roared crazily as he knelt in front of Wang Ensong's corpse, his hands desperately slapping the muddy water in front of him. He did not look like a billionaire boss at all. He had turned into an old man who had lost a loved one. However, he did not deserve any sympathy at all. The cause that he had sown had now borne this fruit. If Wang Ensong had not pushed Shilu into the wolf pack, if he had not fired at Shilu from behind, attempting to use Shilu's flesh and blood as bait, as long as he was willing to kneel down and beg for mercy, and Shilu had not suffered any physical harm, Qin Guang might not have taken his life. Perhaps he would have become a eunuch and suffer for the rest of his life. However, it was his repeated mistakes that pushed him into the abyss, causing Qin Guang to no longer see him as a human being and mercilessly erase his life. However, when a person makes a decision, their personality is the main factor. The nurturing of a person's personality and the environment provided by their parents are the main factors. Wang Ensong could be said to have died in the hands of Qin Guang, but it could also be said that he had died in the hands of Fortune Monger himself. There were many rich second-generation heirs in the world, and there were even people like Lin Jingwei who were second-generation heirs. However, not all of them were so deceitful. Fortune Monger's cries were so loud that even Jiang Yage, who was far away, could hear them clearly. He's going to tear you into pieces. What should we do? He's crying so miserably. Serves him right. I'm not bragging, but I reckon that by the time the people sent by Grandpa find out, this father and son pair will have killed at least 2 digits of people. Do you believe me? Jiang Yage said casually. She was not afraid at all. The hardest part had passed. Jiang Yage really did not think that Fortune Monger and his group could pose any threat to her. Hey, why aren't you saying anything? Qin Guang finally moved. He got up and walked forward. I was just thinking about something. What is it? To kill or not to kill? Forget it, I have to remove the roots when cutting weeds. In any case, it's not a good thing. If he really uses a few billion to throw at me, it'll be quite annoying. Jiang Yage knew that Qin Guang was going to start a massacre again. Actually, she felt that this might not be a good idea. Qin Guang's hands were stained with too much blood today. However, she was already sick of the father and son pair of the Bao family. She also knew that if they really wanted to pay with their lives, the father and son pair of the Bao family should have died 10 or even 100 times. She had casually asked old Jiang on the phone before. The history of Fortune Monger's rise was indeed quite bloody. However, there were people who supported him in the past and helped him get away with it. He was also very influential in Baishui County, so it was difficult for the higher-ups to make up their minds to deal with him. Jiang Yage was actually quite annoyed by this. She also could not stand the routine of finding a balance in the political and business circles. Since there were laws they should be abided by, it was only right to pay with one's life. No matter how rich or how powerful the other party was, there should be a price for doing bad things. However, Wuxia was a complicated society. Many people who committed crimes did not receive the punishment they deserved. Jiang Yage could especially understand why Qin Guang lost his job as the director of the Guangdong General Administration. With his temper, if he really continued to do this, he would be disgusted to death sooner or later. It was even possible that he had seen too many shady things and was angered. If that happened, his grandfather and the others would really have to stand against him. Suddenly, like a ghost, Qin Guang appeared in front of Fortune Monger without warning with his hands behind his back. Between them was Dan and Song's corpse. "I heard that you want to tear my body into pieces? Well, I'm here. Why don't you show me?" Qin Guang looked down at Moneybags without any expression on his face. Ma Song, who was standing behind him, froze. He did not understand how this guy had appeared. A moment ago there was no one where he was standing, and the next moment he was talking with his hands behind his back. Although the back of his head was facing him, Ma Song felt that he was being stared at by the back of his head. If he moved even a little, he would die. "Qin Guang, did you do it?" Hatred and grief made Fortune Monger forget his fear of martial artists for a moment. He raised his head and stared angrily at Qin Guang, roaring. Qin Guang nodded. "That's right, I did it. I also killed these wolves. And then?" As he spoke, he paused and said helplessly, "Actually, I'm a very reasonable person most of the time. However, it seems that I can't reason with you this time. So, I hope that you will remember today's lesson when you cross the bridge of helplessness. If you have a next life, remember to be a good person in your next life and teach your son well." Qin Guang suddenly laughed. He rarely laughed like this. This was because he wanted to hide his inner thoughts. If he had a choice, he would not want to kill. However, there were always people who had to die in this world. Chapter 990. Following Qin Guang's smile, the already chilly late autumn forest suddenly became even colder. Even Jiang Yage, who was peeking in from afar, shuddered and scratched her head. "That's weird, why is it so cold?" Fortune Monger and the others beside Qin Guang could feel it even more clearly. Their teeth chattered as if cold water had been poured over their heads. Fortune Monger, who was furious just a moment ago, immediately sobered up. Fortune Monger thought of the thing that had once left him with an indelible nightmare. He thought of the table that Qin Guang had smashed into pieces that day, and the distance between the two of them. He suddenly woke up. Since his son and his accomplices had died under Qin Guang's hands, then Qin Guang most likely had a gun in his hands. Inner force martial artists were one of the most terrifying existences in the world. How terrifying would an inner force martial artist with a gun be? Fortune Monger didn't know, and he didn't want to experience it. But now, this person was standing in front of him, about to take his life in the next moment. Qin Guang, listen to me." Fortune Monger couldn't care less about his son's corpse. He leaned back and sat on the ground. His legs slowly moved across the muddy ground. As he spoke, he tried to calm Qin Guang down, and at the same time he wanted to quietly distance himself. As for avenging his son, he couldn't care less. Saving his own life was the most important thing. Qin Guang raised his hands and looked straight at Fortune Monger. He still had that strange smile on his face. He slowly raised his right hand and looked at the miserable Fortune Monger, but there was no change in his emotions. Since he had decided to make a move, it was like an arrow leaving the bow. There was no turning back. He didn't want his soft-heartedness to ruin things. He was deliberately trying to return to the state of mind of the true martial Saint Emperor. Although he wasn't bloodthirsty, he saw mortals as ants. As long as he stood on the side of justice, he could control the life and death of others. He didn't need to worry about anything. He just needed to kill to avenge himself. Do it. On the other side, Fortune Sack took advantage of the brief moment when Qin Guang had yet to make a move to quietly widen the distance between the two of them by 4 to 5 meters. He then abruptly roared at Ma Song, who was behind Qin Guang. At this time, although Ma Song was still scared to death, he was the captain of Moneybag's bodyguards and the publicly recognized #1 thug of the Tong Yuan group. Back when he was a soldier, he was also a good fighter in the army. After all, he had been on the battlefield, had some skills, and had seen the world. Ma Song regained his clarity. He gritted his teeth and roared, "Kill!" He used almost all the strength in his body to throw the big guy in front of him. He grabbed it tightly with both hands, aimed at Qin Guang's back and pulled the trigger crazily. Although the others who were standing a little further away were slower than Ma Song, they still took out their weapons after Ma Song. For a moment, sparks flew in all directions, and dense gunshots resounded throughout the forest. Moneybag, who was a few meters away from Qin Guang, finally extricated himself from his fear. He cracked his mouth and laughed hysterically, "So what if you're a martial arts master? I don't believe you won't die." Although the beautiful woman had raised her hand to kill people last time, it was because she had moved too quickly and did not give them time to react. After all, Qin Guang was still young. Although his strength was amazing, he lacked the experience of the dangerous Jianghu. He had been careless. This time he should be dead, right? Moneybag thought as he raised his head and looked in the direction of Qin Guang. The next moment he was stunned. Previously, when Dan and Song fought against Qin Guang, he used 3 pistols, and the bullets were fixed in the air by his internal energy. Now Moneybag was carrying a big guy with a long pipe, but the result was not much better. Ma Song and the rest were still frantically firing at Qin Guang. However, a cloud of dust suddenly exploded around Qin Guang before the bullets that flickered with a metallic luster fell to the ground one after another. After looking twice, Moneybag was sure that his eyes were not playing tricks on him. He did not know how he did it, but when every bullet was about to reach him, it was blocked by the mud that appeared without warning in its flight path. What kind of monstrous ability is this? Am I dreaming? Clicking sounds came from the submachine gun in Ma Song's hand. He had already emptied an entire magazine. But in front of him, Qin Guang still did not turn around. He was still standing there with his right hand raised. Not to mention blood and wounds, his clothes were not dirty. Ma Song was 100% sure that although he did not hit every time, at least 90% of his bullets should have landed on this guy's body. Not to mention killing him, he wouldn't even be able to make him blink or turn his head. Monster. This is a monster. He's not human. Devil? Moneybag, the most loyal bodyguards, continuously emptied their bullets, but it was all in vain. Their minds were blank and everything that was happening in front of them was beyond their understanding. As someone who had seen the methods of an inner force martial artist, Moneybag was more shocked than the others. As a hero of the pugilistic world, Qin Guang's methods were many times stronger than that woman's. Just like how it was written in Wuxia novels, the woman could only live in the worldview of the deer and the cauldron. However, Qin Guang was definitely a character from before demigods and semi-devils. He had almost jumped from Jin Yong's novel to Huang Yi's worldview. Why am I so unlucky? Isn't it good for me to be a local tyrant in Baishuya? Why did I provoke such a monster? Why did I want to tear him to pieces? Just how big is my heart? That's not right. We've been minding our own business. They only came to Baishuya County to film, and I only needed to cooperate with them. I could also ask them to help me advertise my new building. But why did things turn out like this? Unknowingly, Moneybag felt his body become very light, and he slowly floated into the air. Qin Guang was still standing in the same spot, his right hand still raised far away from him. But Moneybag felt that someone was strangling his neck, and the strength was increasing. His breathing became more and more difficult. Not only him but the accomplices he brought were also struggling with all their might. It was as if an invisible hand was strangling them, and they floated into the air bit by bit. Only Hunter Gu, who was kneeling on the ground with weak legs, looked on listlessly. He thought that he would be like the others. Moneybag's head drooped slightly, and when he saw Wanensang's corpse on the ground, he finally came to his senses. Yes, it was because of this son of his that he had wanted to hit on Jiang Yage from the beginning, and that was why he had dragged him into yesterday's dinner. In the end, things had gone sour during the dinner, and he had embarrassed himself. Then, even though he had already realized that the situation was not good, he had warned him to behave, and had even placed him under house arrest. But today he had been released by that prodigal woman, and now things had finally come to this. Perhaps I should have listened to County Head Hu. If I had made up my mind to sacrifice myself earlier, if I hadn't said such reckless words when I found my stupid son's corpse, perhaps I could have really lived on? If my son is gone, I can have another one and I still have an illegitimate son. But if I die as well, then all my troubles will be over. The restraint on his neck loosened a little and Moneybag could finally speak. I regret it so much. He regretted that he had been so lenient toward Wanensang, and even more regretted that he had not taken this matter seriously. At first, he had only treated it as a simple case of Song's willfulness. Later, when he realized that something was wrong, he had not really made up his mind to restrain his son. I know that you regret it. Qin Guang put his hands behind his back. If I hadn't provoked you this time, would you not have killed me? Qin Guang smiled. Not necessarily. If I had found out about what you had done through other channels, perhaps I would have been unhappy and you would still have died. But if I didn't know anything, then forget it. Why do you like to meddle in other people's business? I'm happy to. Qin Guang shrugged nonchalantly, then he suddenly clenched his fist. Blood splattered everywhere, and the Bao father and son as well as Tong Yuan's forces, who had been tyrannical in Baishui County for many years, were completely annihilated. His wealth of hundreds of millions did not allow him to live another second. Jiang Yage had also seen too much blood today, and her nerves had become thick. Seeing the situation, she jogged over. I thought you guys still wanted to talk. Rolling his eyes, Qin Guang replied, You can't give too many lines for the antagonist. Otherwise, what if someone explodes and I kill them? That's true. Jiang Yage held his hand. Then let's go back now? Wait for a while, someone will be coming soon. Ah, they still want to kill people? What are you thinking? This time it's our own people. While the two of them were talking, the lights on the other side of the mountain in the distance lit up. A helicopter rumbled as it flipped over, its bright spotlights sweeping around the forest. Very soon, it discovered the abnormality here, then it turned around and sped up to fly over. Qin Guang and Jiang Yage went to the sand dune house to wait. Standing outside, it was chilly. Qin Guang was not afraid, but Jiang Yage might not be able to withstand it. The helicopter found an empty space nearby and landed. Special forces armed with live ammunition filed out, then jogged all the way over. When they arrived, even the battle-hardened elites of the army were stunned by the sight of the corpses on the ground. Whether it was the dead giant mutated wolf on the ground, or the mangled bodies of Fortune Sack and his men, or the 9 men with holes in their foreheads, they all gave the dense forest a strange and terrifying smell of blood after the rain. This scene was simply too terrifying, too absurd. We are here. When the soldiers got closer, Jiang Yage instinctively wanted to get up and greet them. However, Qin Guang stopped her. Don't be anxious. These people are still very nervous now. If you jump out rashly, what if you scare them and they shoot you? Before he could finish his sentence, the Special Forces soldiers who had already heard the commotion turned around nervously. They gestured to each other and then disappeared into the forest. They formed a jungle battle formation and approached quietly but quickly. Qin Guang pressed Jiang Yage into the sand dune and walked out himself. Okay, relax a little. I'm Qin Guang, I've saved the hostages. Just as he finished speaking, a few soldiers with cold expressions stood out from hiding, their guns aimed at him as if they were facing a formidable enemy. They clearly did not let down their guard. Chapter 991. You're Qin Guang? Nonsense. Isn't Qin Guang a big bald head? Aren't Deng Xiaojiang's crew over there? Who the hell are you? Raise your hands. Obviously, these soldiers didn't know that Qin Guang had come over. They were too nervous to recognize Qin Guang. Slap. The soldier who spoke was slapped on the back of his head. Then a wretched-looking, skinny, middle-aged man stepped out from the crowd and came forward with a straight face. Mr. Director, I was wondering why the scene was so bloody. I didn't expect you to be here. I understand now. All of you put down your guns. You're pointing your guns at the chief of the Guangding General Headquarters. Are you trying to rebel? When Qin Guang turned around, he saw a fellow with a sallow complexion that was brimming with vigor. He didn't expect to meet an acquaintance here. It was the leader of the Xinqing faction, Dai Quan. It seemed that after his resignation, the relationship between the Guangding General Headquarters and the higher-ups was getting closer and closer. Since he took the plane with these Special Forces soldiers, he should have been in the military base from the beginning. Chief, you've worked hard. Are you okay? Hey, look at my stupid mouth. You'll be fine even if the sky falls. Hey, I say, why are you guys still so nervous? Relax, all of you relax for me. Our chief is here. Do you need to make such a fuss? Interrupting Dai Quan's words, Qin Guang continued, All right, stop trying to intimidate me. I'm no longer your chief. Don't bring your tricks to work. Jiang Yage, come out. Jiang Yage had wanted to come out long ago. She wanted to teach this group of Special Forces soldiers a lesson. But Qin Guang calmed her down. All right, control yourself. They're here to save you and they mean well. When the Special Forces soldiers saw Jiang Yage, they completely relaxed and calmed down. Chen Guang thought about it and decided not to greet Dai Quan. Instead, he carried the unconscious Shi Lu onto the helicopter and asked Jiang Yage to follow the helicopter. I'm not leaving. Alright, you've also caught a cold. Let's go to the hospital for a checkup. If necessary, get a transfusion to prevent any sequelae. Getting a cold during menstruation doesn't seem too good. What if it affects the filming? Jiang Yage was stunned. You're still filming? Qin Guang shrugged. Why not? Only Shi Lu was affected. Big Beard and the others didn't know what was going on here. The crew's daily expenses are more or less hundreds of thousands of yuan. We should save as much as we can. Jiang Yage thought about it and realized that it was reasonable. Of the entire crew, only Shi Lu was frightened, but she was not the main creator, so it did not affect the filming. Although something had happened tonight, the earth still had to keep turning, right? She was really insensitive and had a strong endurance. Today's incident did not leave any psychological trauma on her. Then I'll leave first? Yes. Hurry up and get Big Beard to arrange for people to wait in the county. Your manager, Zhou Yun, is in the county? Yes. That's good. Take care of Shi Lu too. Hey, you're attracted to someone? Knocking on Jiang Yage's head, Qin Guang replied, Move your ass. Someone else became a scapegoat for you and that's why they're in this mess. I feel bad about it, alright? Jiang Yage was amused. She looked at him happily. You feel bad for someone else because of me? Qin Guang was indignant. Of course. This is basic human behavior, okay? The soldier turned around and urged, Director Qin, Miss Jiang, how much longer? After confirming Qin Guang's identity, the attitude of these soldiers towards Qin Guang took a 180-degree turn. They were now respectful. As for Qin Guang, the chief instructor of Shun's special training camp, when Qin Guang was still in his honeymoon period with the old patriarchs, whether it was learning about the political mission or passing it on by word of mouth, it was widely spread in the military. It was just that Qin Guang had a shiny bald head when he appeared in front of the camera for a long time. His bald head was so distinctive that many soldiers who did not pay attention to popular news didn't know that his hair had grown back. That was why they didn't recognize him just now. Watching Jiang Yage and Shi Lu board the military helicopter, Qin Guang pulled Dai Quan with a grim expression. Faction leader Dai, what do you think of these wolves? Dai Quan looked around. The other Special Forces soldiers who did not follow the military helicopter were holding cameras and flashlights, checking the dead bodies one by one. These people frowned from time to time, and then secretly looked at Qin Guang with slightly fearful eyes. Then they quickly pretended to be nonchalant and continued to check the scene. These bastards. Alright, keep it in. I'm asking you about the wolves. Director Qin, don't call me faction leader. I can't take it, keep it in. Brother Qin, in my opinion, there must be something fishy about this. Dai Quan finally became honest. Although it was a little inappropriate to call Qin Guang Brother Cheng at his age, in the underworld, the strongest had the final say. It was not a big deal even if he called Qin Guang Brother Cheng. Can't you show some professionalism? Truth be told, Qin Guang knew everything about the mutated wolves, but he had a deeper meaning behind asking Dai Quan about it. He wanted to know if these giant mutated wolves were difficult to deal with in the eyes of an experienced veteran like Dai Quan. Qin Guang had a faint worry that irreversible changes had already happened. Since he had encountered a giant mutated wolf here today, maybe there were mutated bears, mutated tigers, or even mutated humans in other places. Animals could mutate, and of course humans could also be mutated. Qin Guang could not help but think of one thing. The thief who smashed Wu Tong's bones with a mobile phone, and then suddenly died while in custody. Of course, it would hurt when a mobile phone hit a person's body, but under the circumstances of such a close distance, it was still a bit too exaggerated to break the bones of a well-trained elite police officer like Wu Tong on the spot. As for the person's sudden death, it was even more inexplicable. Unfortunately, Qin Guang did not pay attention to it at that time, and did not follow Wu Tong to check the body. Now that he thought about it, it could be said that it was extremely terrifying. It was very likely that the thief had mutated like the pack of wolves, allowing him to explode his potential in a short period of time, and use strength far beyond that of an ordinary person. However, his body's functions could not keep up with his mutation, and after overexerting his physical strength, his organs rapidly dried up, and he finally died in custody. Linking these two events together, if his guess was correct, then it could prove one thing. The concentration of the power of the Holy Grail on Earth was enough to cause other creatures to mutate without opening the world in the cup. Although Qin Guang could not be sure and had not come to a conclusion, he felt that he had to pay attention to it. It would be best if he was overthinking, but if it really happened, then he had to think about how to deal with the situation. He himself was invincible, and any mutated creature was nothing but dust in front of him. However, he was only one person after all, and did not have the ability or energy to shine like the sun. Of course, it was extremely difficult for ordinary people to deal with mutated creatures, and the risk was extremely high. If he had to rely on someone, Qin Guang felt that he could only rely on an inner force martial artist. Seeing Qin Guang's serious expression, Dai Quan calmed himself down and squatted next to the Silver Wolf King's corpse. He bent down and carefully examined it. This guy was unusually large and his strength must be amazing, but he died a little too miserably. I was the one who tore it into two with my bare hands, and at that time I used about 1/10 of my strength. Dai Quan's body trembled. 1/10? Qin Guang shrugged. All right, 1/10. Then this wolf is very powerful. Yes, this wolf can also spit out silver light from its mouth, which is no different from a hidden weapon. Its power is probably equivalent to the special sniper rifle bullets you have seen in individual military exercises. Brother Qin, according to what you said, with my ability in close combat, I can probably deal with 2 to 3 of these wolves, no more than that. Although the people of Xinjiang sect are not good at fighting, Dai Quan, should be in the top 100 in the police force. I understand, Qin Guang replied. The two chatted casually, and not long after, the other 2 helicopters and Baishui County's armed police arrived one after another. The ground was covered in blood, and County Magistrate Hu and the other officials, who were wearing leather shoes, were vomiting non-stop. The weaker police officers were not much better. Looking at the miserable state of the Bao father and son, County Magistrate Hu, who had known them for many years, could not help but feel sad. Tragic, this is really tragic. The chubby county magistrate who looked at Qin Guang, who was inspecting the wolf corpses with Dai Quan, and his heart was chilled to the bone. Fortunately, this incident happened too quickly, and he did not have time to drag Fortune Monk into this mess. Yesterday he had received a call from the higher-ups, and he had also talked to a few police chiefs in the county who might have dragged Bao and Song into this mess, especially the people from the Scenic Area Police Station. No one had made any unforgivable mistakes. The heavens were truly watching over them. Fortunately, the hostage was fine and was still alive and kicking. Although he did not know why there was another minor actor who seemed to be in a bad condition, as long as Jiang Yage was fine, everything was fine. It seemed that he did not have to run anymore. Mr. Qin, why don't you go back and rest first? We will cooperate with the military personnel to clean up the aftermath, and we will definitely give you a satisfactory explanation. Qin Guang turned to look at County Magistrate Hu, not interested in talking to him. The Bao father and son had been domineering in Baishui County for so many years, and as the local official, it was impossible for Fatty Hu not to have some illicit relations with them. The incident happened in a hurry and old Jiang only called 3 helicopters. However, the top military and political leaders of Kainan province must have already taken action secretly. Together with the investigation team that set off overnight the night before yesterday, they must have sent a large number of troops to the border by tomorrow morning at the latest. By that time, the official earthquake in Baishui County would almost begin. At that time, Fatty Hu would be the first to bear the brunt. The rest would be dealt with one by one, and no one would be able to escape. It's just a small problem. It's fine as long as she's fine. You guys have nothing to explain to me anyway, so you can continue with your work. Dai Quan, come with me over there. I have something to tell you. Qin Guang dismissed the chubby county magistrate who, then pulled Dai Quan aside and instructed him with a solemn expression. You must go back and explain everything clearly to the 2 deputy directors, including the methods of these strange wolves that I just told you. Remember them all. Okay. Don't let your guard down. This matter can be big or small. Understood. You have to help the 2 deputy directors. If the situation that I'm most worried about really happens, I'm afraid. Afraid of what? I'm afraid that no one in this world can stay out of trouble. Chapter 992. Qin Guang added another sentence in his heart. His sin was so great that there was no limit to it. Dai Quan sucked in a breath of cold air. It's that serious? Actually, in the records of our sect's inheritance, there have been many ferocious beasts that have appeared since ancient times. This is different. Dai Quan nodded. I understand. Then I'll leave first. Alright, take care. Don't worry about the matters here. I'm here on behalf of the Guangding Bureau. I'm the highest commander here, so I can handle it. That's good. Chen Guang quickly disappeared into the dense forest. He planned to go to the tent camp to get the cup, then follow them to the hospital in Baishui County. He sped all the way, his speed not much slower than a helicopter flying in the sky. His expression was somewhat heavy. Although he had killed countless people tonight, and the result could be considered okay, Shilu was safe and sound, the father and son of the Bao family were completely dead, and the entire crew was in a false alarm. No one was hurt, and perhaps the green mountains and clear waters of Baishui County could be restored. He could not feel happy. He could not help but imagine an overwhelming number of mutated monsters, mutated tigers, lions, wolves, black bears, and even all kinds of domesticated animals. There might even be insects like mosquitoes, flies, fleas, and crickets attacking humans in a frenzy. Or it could be like the thief. Some ordinary people with poor self-control suddenly obtained a power beyond their understanding, and could not extricate themselves from it. They relied on their superior abilities to do evil, lawless, and disrupted the social order. No matter which of the two situations happened, it could be said to be a catastrophic result that affected the entire human race. This would cause chaos in the entire social order, and who knew how much blood would be shed and how many people would die before order could be restored. That scene was simply like a Hollywood doomsday movie. Thinking about this, how could Qin Guang feel relaxed in his heart? I'm still a good person after all. Who would have thought that the power of the Holy Grail leaking out from a broken cup could not only look cool, but also cause other creatures to mutate? What can I do? I'm also in despair. The cup is just there, and I can't stop the power of the Holy Grail from increasing in the outside world. Forget it, even if I have to risk being beaten to death by Liuli, I have to go back and ask her for a solution. This can't go on. I have to do something. Qin Guang thought of Utopia during the Second Punishment World. At that time, the world in the cup had completely merged with the real world. Under the incomparably abundant earth elemental energy, everyone in Utopia had mutated. If the concentration of the power of the Holy Grail continued to increase, there was no guarantee that such a situation wouldn't occur in the future. My heart is so tired and aching. I'm just a cute little handsome guy. I just want to happily learn skills and act cool. Then I'll build a statue and gain faith. Then I'll pass through world and cup one after another while lying down. If he could survive until he completed 3,000 missions without dying of old age, he might be able to smoothly become a god and save Azure, the unlucky god emperor, from the cup. When he became a god, he would be able to ascend to the heavens. He would be able to enlighten all the girls that he liked, had a good relationship with, or were beautiful and cute, so that everyone could enjoy happiness with him. If his luck was better in the future, he might even be able to go to the endless divine realm and be patted on the shoulder by the great god of chaos. Young man, thank you for saving my daughter. I can satisfy all your wishes. Then he would be able to happily lie down in the god realm as a god emperor. He would have billions of cute girls and he would be able to make friends with a few goddesses all day long and so on. I don't want much, don't mess with me like this. I really don't want to drag all of humanity down with me. I also don't want to create a scene as big as the end of the world. This pot is too big, too heavy. The old man can't bear it. With this thought in mind, Qin Guang first contacted the bearded man and confirmed that they had already arrived at the hotel in the scenic area. He also helped them pack up their belongings in the tent. Then he rushed back to the hotel at a speed that was even faster than when he was rescuing Liuli. Without another word, he grabbed his bag and prepared to hide in the toilet to have a calm conversation with Liuli. Sigh. Qin Guang, wait a minute. Seeing that Qin Guang was about to close the toilet door, Big Beard hurriedly stopped him from outside. What? I plan to bring some people to the county to visit Shilu. What about you? Are they all right? Qin Guang thought for a moment. Jiang Yage is fine, but Shilu might have caught a cold. Wait for me for a minute. Find a good car. I'll drive you there after I come out of the toilet. He had thought about it. It was better not to tell anyone about his massacre today. When Shilu woke up, Jiang Yage would also tell her about it. Although the people he killed were people who deserved to be killed, this kind of thing was still a little scary in the eyes of ordinary people. It was fine as long as it was over. There was no need to make a big deal out of it. Otherwise, if the filming couldn't continue, the past 2 months of effort would have been wasted. Big Beard nodded. Okay. By the way, you're not hurt, are you? Are you kidding me? It's not that I'm bragging to you, but even if your friend Shi Changhe used the purple and green dual swords in Heroes of Shushan a few years ago to stab me in the armpit, I would still be able to clamp them. I'm not talking to you anymore, I'm in a hurry. When Qin Guang finished speaking, he slammed the toilet door shut. Big Beard raised his hand to say something, but he was a step too slow. He scratched his head and said, "The cup of water. You want me to hold it for you? That's not very nice." 30 seconds later, Qin Guang opened the door. Big Beard jumped back. "Who are you?" "It's me. Cut the crap. Let's go. Let's go to the county." Big Beard's eyes widened. He pointed at Qin Guang's head, which was obviously twice as big. "But your head. It's okay. Don't mind the details." Qin Guang didn't want to pay attention to him. He hid his face and walked out. His fingers accidentally touched the corner of his mouth, and he grimaced in pain. Big Beardy looked at his back, and his mind was filled with Anil's big question mark. He muttered to himself, "What the hell? It's only been a few seconds and there's no sound at all. How did he get hurt like this? Also, what happened to the armpit catching the purple and green dual swords? Did you use your face to catch Sun Wukong's Jingu Bang?" Qin Guang, who was walking in front, recalled the encounter just now. He was really angry. Damn, Lu Li's hand is really ruthless. He felt that if it wasn't for the super active Mother Earth explosive ability in the world in the cup, he wouldn't have been beaten half to death. Wait, this doesn't seem to be good news. The stronger my recovery ability, the more difficult it is for me to die. Isn't it easier for her to beat me up? Am I not the highest level human sandbag in the world? What the F***ck? No wonder she was so ruthless just now. Wasn't it because she knew she couldn't beat me to death? Forget it. Just let me die. Qin Guang subconsciously wanted to cover his forehead to express his condolences. His hand was about to touch it when he remembered there was a bag on his head. He was angry, but there was nothing he could do. Today's beating was in vain. Let's go back to a minute ago from the moment Qin Guang entered the world in the cup. "You're finally here. I thought you could hide outside for the rest of your life." The sound of bones cracking could be heard. "Sister Lu Li, listen to my explanation." Bang. "If you hit me again, I'll fight back." Bang bang. "I really fought back." Bang bang bang. "I thought we were friends." "We'll be friends when I calm down." Deer Cry grew a super long leaf and fanned Lu Li. "That's right. Sister Lu Li, you're tired, right? Come and cool down." Qin Guang didn't know how much time had passed outside, but he felt that he had at least endured a century in the world in the cup. Actually, when he first came in and saw Lu Li, who had once again turned into an African miss, he knew that he wouldn't have it easy this time. In short, no matter how difficult it was, he had finally endured it. The most infuriating thing was that he couldn't get the power of the Holy Grail from the outside world. At that time he communicated with Lu Li, who had finally calmed down. "Sister Lu Li, anyway, you're not angry anymore. Can we talk about some serious matters? The situation is really urgent." "Go ahead. You saw the power of the Holy Grail from the outside world, right?" "I know. I also met a mutated creature with elemental abilities today." "I know too. Then why is this happening?" "You triggered the realm of punishment twice and the world in the cup fused with the real world twice. Although the fusion was dissolved afterwards, there was a connection between the two worlds, so the power of the Holy Grail kept leaking out." "Two worlds? What the hell? I forgot to tell you. When you triggered the realm of punishment, it was a special world in the Holy Grail called the real world that was created for you after it completely fused with your world. The level of this real world is the same as the realm of life. There are a total of 9 special worlds that are on the same level as the realm of life in the real world." "Damn. There's such bad luck? Why didn't you say so earlier? You wouldn't understand even if I told you." "Forget it. Then why would the power of the Holy Grail leak?" "Oh no, leak. I don't know either. If I could figure out the secret of this broken cup, would I still be locked up here?" "That's true. Is there any way to remedy this?" "There isn't. Stop messing around. You're a God Emperor." "I'm just a God Emperor locked up in the Holy Grail." "Thank you. Then I can only watch helplessly?" "Congratulations, you got it right, but there's no reward." "Then if the power of the Holy Grail continues to increase in the outside world, when will a large number of mutated creatures appear?" "I don't know." "Then what else do you know? Tell me what I should do now." Liu Li smiled calmly. "I'll leave you with a sentence. Everything will work out when it comes to it. You've learned to answer first. Let me add another sentence for you. Everything will work out when it comes to it." In any case, Qin Guang suffered for nothing and came out with a bitter smile. To have met such an unreliable God Emperor, yet he hadn't been killed by her yet. His zodiac sign must be that of a cockroach. Squinting his swollen eyes while driving at lightning speed, Qin Guang looked at the distant skyline and thought to himself, forget it. Since things have come to this, there's no point in begging for help. I can only do as Lioli said and take things one step at a time. If it's a blessing, it's not a curse. If it's a curse, it can't be avoided. Since I can't resist it, I might as well close my eyes and enjoy the torture of life. If the sky is really going to fall, since it's all my fault, I'll just brace myself and bear it. Otherwise, what else can I do? Big Beard Deng, who was sitting in the front passenger seat, turned to look at Qin Guang, then tilted his head back. Damn, this swelling is going down too fast. Are you a 1,000-year-old Yunnan white herb that has gained sentience? When the car arrived at the county hospital and got off, Big Beard looked at Qin Guang again, only to find that his son's swollen head had completely recovered. Qin Guang. Uncle, don't look at me like that. I know I'm very handsome now. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.